Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501, Come Here. Dika is the third son of the leader of the Comanche tribe. Among the many sons of the Comanche chief, Dika is undoubtedly the best among them. And now the chief Comanche is very old, and his health is getting worse and worse, so now more and more tribes are starting to support Dika with a clear-cut stand. Comanche is a branch of the Aztec language, and Dika means friendly messenger in Comanche. Dika is very dissatisfied that his father gave him such a name, because he doesn't like being friendly. What he likes is strength and violence. But what Dika didn't know was that his name, Dika, would be Tixia if translated into English, and this English name became the source of the Texas name in later generations. When the Spanish colonists first arrived here, they asked the local Indians which tribe it belonged to, and the answer was that Zai originally meant friendly messenger in the local language, and those Indians used it to express themselves, and it is not an Apache tribe that is hostile to the Europeans. The Spaniards mistakenly thought this was the name of the tribe, so they called this place Tixia, which later became Texas. In fact, the Comanche, like the Apache, are Indian tribes that hate Spanish colonists and even other colonists. The courageous Comanche not only often attacked the nearby small tribes, but even dared to attack the Spanish and British colonists. It was only in the early 19th century that they were defeated after fighting with the Arapajos, who went south, and finally had to ally with the Cheyenne to seek a truce. However, the war with the Arapajos greatly damaged the strength of the Comanche. When the Americans moved westward, they were already unable to fight the Americans, and were eventually driven by the Americans and moved into the reserved area. But at this time, the Comanche tribe is still at its peak. Now the Cherokees are not far away to conquer, and the Comanche at the forefront will face the Cherokees, who have defeated many powerful tribes in the north. Chief Comanche is old, and the elders are about to go to see the gods, so Dika, with the support of many tribes, became the supreme commander of the coalition against the Cherokee. In the eyes of the Comanche and its allies, Dika did a really good job before. The Cherokee came here as early as the spring, but they did not take the Comanche in one go. On the contrary, the Cherokee did not dare to move forward because of the outbreak of the disease. It is for this reason that the Comanche talents have time to discuss with the Apaches and Navajo, and finally the three powerful tribes united to form a huge coalition. Compared with the Indian tribes in the central Great Plains and the northern Great Lakes region, the number of Indian tribes living in the southwest is not the largest, and the hot climate limits the population of these tribes. However, no one can deny that the Indian tribes living in this harsh natural environment are extremely tough and brave. In this land, a battle of a few hundred people is considered a large-scale war, and if it is a war with more than 1,000 people, it is definitely one of the few large-scale wars. And now, on this vast and flat land, nearly 20,000 fighters from the three tribes have gathered. This is unprecedented. As the commander of the coalition forces, Dika was extremely proud after seeing the Allied soldiers, because these coalition forces resisted the Cherokee under his command. If the Cherokee can be defeated, after the old guy dies, he can't think of anyone else who can compete with him as the chief of the Comanche tribe. But first, I have to lead the 20,000 powerful fighters to defeat the Cherokee. In Dika's eyes, the number of Cherokees is only about 20,000. Which is about the same number as the coalition forces, but Dika has never looked down upon the guys who live in the east and north, because they are soft guys, and they are not worthy of being compared with the tough Comanche warriors. Not to mention that the number of people is almost equal. Even if there are more Cherokee people, the great Comanche fighters can defeat those soft guys. In this regard, Dika has never doubted. And the performance of those Cherokee soft eggs before was like this. Although the Cherokee possessed the kind of magical weapon that could fly, it didn't do much harm to the brave Comanche guy. Cherokee would only use these useless things, and the brave Comanche warriors would not be afraid of those things that could fly. The spies came back 2 days ago and said that it seemed that the chief of the Cherokee had arrived, and it was said that they were huge guys. But is it great for being big? It's okay if you don't go to the battlefield. Once you dare to go to the battlefield, then let you see the bravery and invincibility of our Comanche warriors. Well, it would be better if you could kill that Chief Cherokee ... for defeating the Cherokee soft egg. It is not only Dickie who has strong confidence, but also the coalition soldiers under his men. They have the same views as Dickie. Those soft guys from the east and the north can't beat the powerful southwestern guys. Now those Cherokee soft eggs dare to assemble. It seems that they want to taste the strength of the Southwest warriors. If this is the case, then thoroughly defeat those Cherokee softies. After all, the powerful coalition soldiers are not only extremely tough, but the coalition also has nearly 800 horses. These war horses were snatched from the surrounding tribes that had made friends with the Spanish. I'm reading www.whocanshoe. Come have to say that the war horse is really a good thing. With this mount, the combat effectiveness of coalition soldiers is increased in a straight line. And what about the Cherokee soft egg on the opposite side? Except for those scouts riding on war horses, the other soft guys didn't seem to have any war horses to ride on. The numbers are almost the same. Do those soft guys have many horses? They even dared to assemble and fight against the coalition forces. Isn't this looking for death? In this way, Dickie and the coalition forces under his command are assembled again with such confidence. They are here to give the Cherokee soft eggs the heaviest blow, and to defeat the Cherokee soft eggs in one go! In the prehistoric history of the battle between the two sides, neither Dickie nor the coalition soldiers had the slightest doubt about defeating the Cherokee softies. But when the fighters on both sides came into contact, Dickie realized that he was too wrong. High-speed text hand playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 502, completely disabled. Dickie stared at the scene blankly. It was really wanting to cry without tears. What did those Cherokee do? The 24 flying things floating in the sky just now killed many coalition soldiers, but the company soldiers who had been prepared did not panic. Besides, didn't those things that could fly have already flown away? According to previous experience, as long as these flying things fly away, it is difficult to fly back. Now that those flying things can no longer pose a threat to the coalition, then it is time for the coalition soldiers to slaughter the Cherokee softies. But what are those things that those Cherokee softballs got afterwards? After an earth-shattering explosion, the coalition soldiers who were close to 20,000 suddenly lost 4,000 to 5,000. A total of 4,000 to 5,000 people disappeared out of thin air, leaving behind the broken flesh and blood all over the mountains and plains. And those who can stand are all dumbfounded, as if they were frightened by this earth-shattering explosion. And this was not enough. Before Dickie could recollect, there was another screaming sound in the sky. Then there was another earth-shattering explosion, and it was visible to the naked eye that part of the coalition soldiers disappeared out of thin air. The soldiers on both sides were still a mile away, but the coalition soldiers on their own side were almost half gone. Such a thrilling scene made Dickie's mind suddenly a thought. Could it be that those Cherokee softies really came with the will of the gods? Otherwise, how could they be so powerful? The same idea appeared in the mind of almost every company soldier. The scene in front of me is really tragic. How many old guys who were chatting and laughing together just now suddenly become a pool of minced meat, even if they are not dead, if they don't have a leg, or they don't have one arm. Even among the dead old folks, the death look is extremely terrifying. Either half of the head is lost, or the chest and abdomen are cut open by something inexplicable, and the intestines and stomach are flowing all over. Who has seen such a terrifying sight? But at this moment, there was another thrilling scream in the sky. This time even the stupid coalition soldier knew what to do. I didn't say anything. Sayazi ran. What? You said you can't run? You think we are really stupid? Don't you run here and wait for death? As a result, amidst the wailing of the mountains and plains, the tribal coalition forces that were still arrogant just now have all turned into flies without their heads. Even Dickie couldn't help but turn the horse's head, and began to run wildly with his men. You can't run without running. Dickie is also afraid of being hit by that kind of horrible weapon, so not to mention the position of the chief, even his life will not be saved. Fortunately, we have a lot of horses here, otherwise I really can't get out. Durkia, who was riding on the horse, looked at the warriors who were also riding horses sprinting for their lives not far away, and his heart was a little calmer. But when he glanced casually, he found that there seemed to be two groups of people approaching quickly in the distance. Almost subconsciously turning his head, Dika was horrified to discover that those Cherokee softies actually had so many cavalry. Just a rough estimate. Dika was a little desperate to find that those Cherokee softegs were not without cavalry. The number of cavalry in their family was almost 3 times more than the number of cavalry in the Allied forces. How to play this? For a moment, Dika was really desperate. Those Cherokee softies also have cavalry, and there are so many. Can this still run out? Facts have proved that Dika's worries are very reasonable. Almost 20,000 Tri-Family's Allied forces completely collapsed under the saturation attack of the Grim Bear Army grenadiers and mortars. Their performance is no different from the previous Cree, even if they are stronger than the Cree, and braver than the Cree, but they will collapse in the face of such a heavy firepower that they have never seen before. 3 rounds of salvos killed almost 7,000 tribal coalition forces, and the remaining company soldiers immediately began to defeat. The next step is the task of the guards. Don't look at the 3 ethnic coalition forces that still have 12,000 or 3,000 people left, but even before they collapsed, they would definitely not be able to please these 2,000 guards, let alone they have completely collapsed now. Therefore, 12,000 or 3,000 people were driven away by the 2,000 guards just like chasing sheep, but still the same sentence. No matter how fast 2 legs run, can they run 4 legs? Therefore, even if it was the first to see the chance to escape, it was eventually chased down by the guards. The tri-racial coalition soldiers who were exhausted from running were eventually knocked to the ground by the guards with wooden clubs and clubs. Of course, if you still want to stand up and continue to escape, then instead of smashing it with a wooden stick, you will give you a peanut without hesitation. How accurate is the marksmanship of the guards? They are all carefully selected from the veterans and then have undergone arduous training. Even if they are riding on Mercedes-Benz war horses, their marksmanship is first-rate. With a burst of crackling gunshots like fried beans, more than 1,000 tribal coalition forces fell under the guns of the guards, and now, the collapsed deserters are completely honest. At this time, if they still don't understand that those so-called Cherokee softies are simply not something they can afford, then they will have become out-and-out fools. Fortunately, the minds of these tri-racial coalition soldiers are not stupid. After being bombed for 3 consecutive rounds and being driven almost to death by the guards like a sheep, these coalition soldiers finally realized an extremely cruel fact, that is, an honest surrender is better than anything. After the Stone Bear rides the Fire Phoenix and led the high-level officers of the 1st Division from behind www.wuxiaspot.com. The mountains are full of tri-national coalition soldiers who are kneeling on the ground and daring not to move. This time the Stone Bears were also fierce in the battle, and an order was given to let go to kill. As a result, the unlucky Tri-Group Coalition Army became the team that killed the most since the establishment of the Grim Bear Army. According to the final statistics, the Tri-Ethnic Coalition, which is close to 20,000, will eventually be able to keep the total number of less than 8,000. The company soldiers, who were baptized by hot air balloons, bombs, and mortars, were finally picked up again by the guards. Nearly 10,000 people were killed in the battle. In addition, more than 2,000 people suffered seriously injured. In this era, it is estimated that these seriously injured coalition soldiers will not live long. Even the remaining 8,000 coalition soldiers, who are still full, are almost all wounded. This battle not only completely maimed the Comanche, but also suffered severe damage to the Apache and Navajo. High-speed text hand playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 503, Editor. This battle really crippled the tri-racial coalition forces. Except for the hundreds of people who were specially ordered to be released by Shi Xiong, all the others were captured by the Grim Bear Army except for their deaths. Of course, The horror of the Cherokee quickly spread throughout the Southwest with the mouths of those coalition soldiers who ran out. Most of these coalition soldiers who were specially released by Shi Xiong ran away on horseback. In this era, apart from the current Cherokee tribe, all tribes who can be qualified to ride horses are people with status in the tribe. And these people also witnessed the crushing attacks of the Grim Bear Army. They witnessed how nearly 20,000 tribal coalition forces completely collapsed in just a few minutes, and they also saw with their own eyes half of them, brothers, fly into ashes and annihilate in an instant. Such a horrible scene completely frightened these escaped soldiers, and when they went back to tell the situation of the battle, they only brought deep fear to the tribe. Not only the Comanche but also the Apaches and Navajos, even the Pueblos and some local tribes, who had been quiet, were all frightened. They knew that the three tribes who had migrated from the north joined forces to resist the Cherokee. They also saw that the three powerful tribes formed a powerful coalition, a full 20,000 fighters, all in the entire Southwest. In the eyes of the tribe, it seems that there is a powerful team that cannot resist. But such an unstoppable team was completely defeated by the Cherokees with such terrifying weapons in a short period of time. So how powerful are the Cherokees? You know, even those Spaniards, if they encounter a coalition of 2,003 tribes on the grassland, they have to stay far away, and the Cherokee team from the Far East broke this team effortlessly. Could it be that this Cherokee team really got the will of the gods, and the gods were helping them? Recalling that the same powerful Koa, Osages, and Arapajos in the north were easily subdued by the Cherokee got the will of the gods, and it became almost all tribes in the Southwest. Consensus. Because they really couldn't find the reason why the Cherokee were so powerful, so the reason that the gods were helping the Cherokee became the only reason. Therefore, on the third day after this battle was over, some chiefs of small tribes came to surrender. These small tribes are all tribes with a population of only a few thousand people, but no matter how small the mosquitoes are, they are meat. Moreover, these small tribes are natives of the region, so Stone Bear accepted them warmly. With the help of these ground snakes, the Grim Bear Army can take the Southwest region faster. Sure enough, after the chiefs or tribal leaders of these small tribes flew once in a hot air balloon, they became more convinced that these people were the things of the angels of the gods. Because no one can fly into the sky, that is the land of the gods. Only the messengers of the gods can fly into the sky and enjoy the incomparably wonderful taste. And now, things they couldn't even think of before happened to them. Wouldn't it mean that they also got the approval of the gods? Therefore, the leaders of these small tribes immediately bowed down under Shi Xiong's pomegranate pants after flying once. And the impact of this war is far more than just making these small tribes sincerely submitting to them. When the army was repaired for a few days and was ready to go out again to destroy the Comanche, the chief of the largest aboriginal tribe in the Southwest took the tribe with him. The priest and other high-ranking tribes came to the camp. The Pueblos finally made a wise choice, even if they were separated from the logistics camp by the Comanche, but the chief of the Pueblo, Zuawa, came in person. Shi Xiong personally welcomed Zuawa into his exclusive big tent. The two people talked in the big tent for half an afternoon, then Zuawa and Shi Xiong walked out of the big tent with satisfied smiles. Of course, Zuawa, who walked out of the big tent, bowed a salute to the Stone Bear in front of everyone. It was the salute that the lower level among the Pueblo people paid when they met the higher level. This ceremony showed the attitude of the Pueblo people, and Shi Xiong accepted Zuawa's ceremony calmly. The content of the conversation between the two people is actually not that much, which is mainly because Zuawa himself came with an attitude of surrender. Since Zuawa has shown this attitude, Shi Xiong has also greatly promised the Pueblo people a lot of favorable terms. For example, if the Pueblo people can help the Grim Bear Army to dominate the Southwest, then the Pueblo people will become the managers of this area in the future. By then, the 5th Division of the Grim Bear Army, which is being formed near Beijing, will be stationed in the Southwest, assisting the Pueblo people in the management of this vast and fertile land. The so-called mixed division is to select a certain proportion of soldiers from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th divisions, and then use these soldiers as the backbone, and then fill them into the Crees, Powhatans, Osages, and Kiowas. Warriors from tribes conquered by the Grim Bears, such as Man and Arapaho, constitute 3 new mixed divisions. Just pointing to the Cherokee to form a Grim Bear army is definitely not enough, and the Cherokee does not have that many fighters. Therefore, it is imperative to supplement the fighters of other races. In fact, many fighters of the Korean Powhatan, who are now well integrated, have entered the 4th division. Shi Xiong now plans to use more than 3 years to form 6 more mixed divisions, eventually bringing the number of the Grim Bear army to 10 divisions, totaling 100,000. With 100,000 troops, even if most of them are mixed divisions, they are enough to manage the conquered area for the tribe. As for the main combat unit of the Grim Bear army, it is naturally the 1st to 4th divisions. The main combat force of 40,000, coupled with advanced weapons, even has an absolute advantage against the British or Americans. Every time a region is conquered. www.wuxiaspot.com Shi Xiong intends to leave a mixed editor to sit in. Even if the Pueblos take the initiative to surrender, Shi Xiong will not delegate all power to the Pueblos unless they can really integrate into the Cherokee tribe, but this will take years of observation. Prior to this, the force of a mixed editor is still very necessary. Shi Xiong didn't want the territories he had worked so hard to defeat, and eventually become someone else. The surrender of the Pueblos immediately caused a storm in this area. Although the Pueblos are not as powerful as the Comanche, Apache, and Navajo, this tribe is the aboriginal here, representing the attitude of the aboriginals living in this area. The most important thing is that with the help of the Pueblo people, the pace of conquest of the Grim Bear army will become faster. And the truth is so. High-speed text hand playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 504, The New Chief Who Flees. Zuawa is indeed a not-so-simple person, even Shi Xiong has to admit this. But then again, a simple-minded person can't sit on the seat of a big tribe chief. When the Grim Bear army conquered other tribes, there were too many rapists of this kind. But those rapists were mostly members of some tribes, and like the chief of a clan being a traitor personally, this is the first time the entire Grim Bear army has encountered this kind of thing. However, there is a clan leader who acts as traitor to the violent bear army, and the next action of the violent bear army is really not going too smoothly. Originally, there were only 2 powerful aboriginal tribes in the southwest, one was the Navajo and the other was the Pueblo. However, the Navajo people are semi-nomadic people. This tribe lives on grazing and has a long-distance migration tradition. However, there are also seasonal relatively fixed residences for raising livestock and growing crops. So the Navajo controls a relatively large territory. After all, they need to have enough territory to migrate. The Pueblo people are a thorough farming people. They don't migrate long distances every year like the Navajo people. They migrate from the highlands to areas with abundant water and grass. The Pueblo people used to be fixed in one area for a long time, regional. But since the Apache and Comanche migrated here from the north hundreds of years ago, these 2 sturdy tribes have become chucks in the entire southwestern region. Because the Navajo are a semi-nomadic people, they are similar in nature to the Comanche and the Apache, and the Navajo are also a very tough and populous tribe. The Apache and the Comanche are not dare to do anything to the Navajo, so they targeted the relatively moderate Pueblo. In the past few hundred years, the Pueblos have been mistreated by the Apaches and Comanche. If it weren't for the strength of the Pueblos themselves, they might have been smashed by those 2 sticks to annihilation. Therefore, the Pueblos cannot be said to be the death feuds of the Apaches and the Comanche, but their relationship is definitely not much better. This time Zuawa was very straightforward and fell into trouble, just to use the Cherokee's hands to completely drive the Comanche and Apache out of this area. For Zuawa's idea, Shi Xiong is very clear, since the goals and interests of both sides are the same. Shi Xiong didn't mind being the knife in Zuawa's hand. Well, at the same time, let Zuawa thoroughly see the real strength of the Grim Bear army, and this guy in the province has any other crooked thoughts. In this way, under the leadership of the Pueblos, the Grim Bear army went all the way to the location of the king court of the Comanche in a flat and crushing posture. Well, it's a bit unsuitable to say that the royal court is located, because neither the Comanche nor the Apaches have their own royal courts like the Indian tribes in the East and North Central, nor do they have royal courts for such nomads. What to guard the tribe? Among the two tribes, the area where the number of people is most concentrated is where the royal court is located. It's just that neither the Comanche nor the Apache's royal court is located at a fixed location, and this location changes almost every year. Therefore, if the Grim Bear Army were to find the location of the king's court, it would certainly not be an easy task. But with the Pueblo people as guides, this matter is much easier. As long as the royal courts of these two tribes can be found and all the high-level members of these two tribes can be killed, then it will be easier for the Grim Bear Army to take over here. Facts also proved the role of the Pueblo. Under their leadership, the Grim Bear Army quickly found the seat of the Comanche's royal court. What stunned the Stone Bear and the Grim Bear soldiers was that when they arrived here, they discovered that the new chief of the Comanche tribe had already run away with hundreds of people. Thousands of Comanche tribes and tribal chiefs who were doing things for the dead old chiefs were left in this rich land. Great Son of God, your arrival has filled this place with light. As soon as we met, the high priest, whose old tooth was about to fall out, showed a posture of total submission. Of course, what he said was quickly translated. The high priest of the Comanche was really old. It was not because of the secret technique of the high priest Kabru that the mother of Hong Yun had seen before. Shi Xiong visually observed that this old guy must be at least 70 years old. This age is definitely longevity. Even if you look at the entire North American Indians, we must know that the average life expectancy of North American Indians in this era is only more than 30 years old. If a person of this age is placed in later generations, it is almost equivalent to a 110-year-old man. For such an old man, Shi Xiong politely showed enough respect. Of course, this respect is only because of the age of the high priest. After the old man, who looked like a gust of wind could blow him to death, sat down, Shi Xiong asked him with interest, "Do you know my name?" "I've heard of the name of the Grey Son of God long ago." Those Vasikas said that there appeared in the Far East a man who was personally directed by the Supreme Sun God, and he would do a lot of magical things. When the army came, I persuaded our old chief not to be your enemy, and our old chief did have this idea, but the old chief is too old, and his sons are ambitious, especially ones led the Daka that the old chief valued most. The old man's eyes flashed with a look that did not match his age. www.wuxiaspa.com. But with his unhurried narration, Shi Xiong also knew the ins and outs of the matter. Things are nothing more than such bad things. The old Lion King is getting old, and his little lions can't wait to show their strength and abilities in front of the old Lion King, so as the best of the little lions, that is, the guy who organized the Triracial Alliance, Germany in this way, could disobey the old Lion King's order and connected the other two tribes alone, and then formed a powerful tribal coalition. In the face of such a situation, even if the old Lion King wanted to stop it, he was powerless. Of course, facing the triracial coalition organized by Aka, the old chief also had a little more confidence. After all, such a powerful team was also something he had never imagined before. The result is completely desperate. Such a powerful tri-ethnic coalition army only ran back a few hundred people, and the others were either killed in battle or captured. The old Lion King didn't bear the bad news, he just belched. And Aka announced that he was the new chief of the Comanche as soon as his father died, and then led hundreds of loyalists and enough food to escape westward overnight, leaving behind a group of nowhere, the people who rely on high-speed text hand-playing Super Chief Chapter List. Chapter 505, Naming of Future Helicopters. The new chief of the Comanche tribe, that is, the Durkia who fled in a hurry, turned his back on his tribe, and naturally his chief was not recognized by the tribe. Daka ran away with the empty title of a Comanche chief, and the remaining Comanche naturally quit. The Comanche is a large tribe with a population of about 7 to 80,000. Their population may not be as large as the Cree and Osages, but their sturdy character and strong physique make them the southwestern part of the North American continent, of a powerful tribe. When Daka formed the Tri-Clan Alliance Army, It did not gather all the fighters of the tribe. Now the entire Comanche tribe still has more than 10,000 qualified fighters distributed among the tribes. They didn't know Daka, abandon the things of the tribe. Therefore, under the appointment of the Comanche high priest, a priest who will become the tribal high priest in the future led the soldiers of the 3rd Division to stay and cooperate with Kara Kriulu, who came from Shangjing, to accept the rest of the Comanche tribe. There are soldiers from the 3rd Division, enough to deal with the remaining soldiers of the Comanche. After all, those warriors were not gathered together, they were scattered among dozens of tribes, and one tribe could have 100 or 200 warriors, even if it was too many. Coupled with the cooperation of those Comanche sacrifices, Shi Xiong knew that the Comanche tribe had completely fallen. And Shi Xiong led the 1st and 2nd Divisions and the Guards to continue westward. Daka fled westward. If not unexpected, they must have fled to the Apache territory. The Apache turf and the Comanche turf are closely connected, although there are some minor frictions between the two races. The relationship is generally good. Not surprisingly, Daka fled westward. Shi Xiong doesn't want to leave any more time for the Apache to prepare. But compared to the Comanche, Stone Bear still admires the Apache. Like the Comanche, the Apaches are not natives of southwestern North America. They all migrated from the north. But because the Apache live in an area closer to the west, they have been in contact with the Spanish colonists a long time ago. After the Spanish colonists killed the Indians in Central America, they followed Mexico all the way north into North America, and continued north along the west coast until they reached the future Canadian territory. So don't think that the Spaniards can't touch the central and eastern parts of North America, but they are still very powerful west of the Rocky Mountains. However, the sturdy Apaches are not very interested in the Spanish, especially after the Spanish destroyed the Aztec civilization. The Apaches are even less interested in the Spanish. In fact, not only the Spaniards, but the entire European colonists are not good people in the eyes of the Apaches. So, starting from the Spanish, to French colonists, British colonists and even later Mexicans, the Apaches are also fighting. Apache is a general term for the Indian tribes living in the southwestern United States. The entire Apache tribe is divided into 7 major tribes, which are closely related to the Navajo. Traditionally, Apaches were distributed in later generations of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, and northern Mexico. The brave Apaches not only fought against the Spaniards for hundreds of years, but also resolutely stood on the side of the Americans during the Mexican-American War. It's just that they didn't see the ugly face of the Americans clearly. When the Americans defeated the Mexicans with the help of the Apaches, the Americans began to think badly again. They found all kinds of reasons to find the Apaches' fault. Eventually, the Apaches and the Americans were torn apart due to territorial disputes and started a war. However, the Apaches, who were overspread during the Mexican-American War, did not have powerful weapons that could resist the Americans. In the late 19th century, the Apaches were defeated and then forced to move into different reservations. It can be said that among the entire North American Indians, the Apaches are definitely a strange flower. Like the Sioux in the north, they are vanguards against the whites. On this basis, the Apaches are worthy of the respect of Shi Xiong. But respect belongs to respect, and you still have to fight, but how you should fight depends on the specific situation. Stone Bear has never denied the sturdiness of the Apaches. This is recognized even by later Americans, and it can be seen in the naming of various helicopters equipped by the U.S. military in later generations. The American Army Aviation Corps was established in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, right in the center of many Indian reservations. Therefore, some people believe that in order to reflect the traditional honor of the local tribe, the American Army Air Force should use the name of the Indian tribe to name the helicopter. Although the American Army and the Indian tribes were enemies in the Indian War, which lasted 148 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, many Indians entered the American Army and served in the American Army since World War II. and made many contributions to the United States. So this proposal has also been recognized by many Americans. After World War II and before the 1960s, most of the helicopters developed by the Americans were named after Indian tribes or historical celebrities among the Indian tribes. However, in 1960, the AH-1 gunship developed by Bell Company did not use this tradition, but instead used this helicopter as named after the Cobra. But this practice of American Army aviation immediately triggered protests from the Indians, and American Army aviation soon resumed this tradition. Later, the various helicopters studied by the Americans revived the custom of naming Indian tribes or celebrities of Indian tribes. www.wuxiaspa.com. Like the UH-1 developed by Bell, which served in the 1950s and 1960s. The Iroquois helicopter and the OH-58 Kiowa helicopter are named after the Iroquois tribe and the Kiowa tribe respectively. The former once drove the Cherokee out of the Great Lakes area, while the latter has been conquered by stone bears in this historical time and space. Also, the UH-72 Lakota helicopter is named after the Lakota tribe in the Sioux Lake. Sikorsky's AH-56 Cheyenne is named after the Cheyenne. H-34 Choctaw is named after the Choctaw tribe living in the southeast, and CH-37 Mojave and CH-54 Ta. Well, that H-19 Chickasaw was named after the Chickasaw tribe. It is worth mentioning that, in this historical time and space, the Chickasaws are the Chicashes who were destroyed by the stone bear. In addition, the famous Black Hawk helicopter is named after the chief of the Sauk tribe, Black Hawk. The Ra-66 Comanche and CH-47 Chinook developed by Boeing are also named after Indian tribes. The former has just been conquered by the stone bear in this historical time and space. The world's recognized #1 armed helicopter in later generations is also the famous AH-64 Apache developed by Boeing, which is named after the Apache. From the naming of the Army aviation helicopters by the Americans in later generations, it can be seen that the Apaches are powerful, otherwise the Longbow Apache would not be named after the Apache. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, Apaches preparing to withdraw west. Facing the Apaches, Shi Xiong was not afraid at all, but he was also ready to fight a bad battle. After all, this tribe was able to fight the Spaniards for hundreds of years in the original historical time and space, and later helped the Americans beat the Mexicans away, which is enough to prove the power of this tribe. More importantly, Shi Xiong really didn't want to kill this tribe of North American Indians who were quite high-minded. If you really want to fight, you won't be afraid of two more Apache Grim Bear army, but the problem is that after the first battle, Stone Bear really doesn't want to cause too much damage to this tribe. But when Shi Xiong was in a dilemma, the Apache gave Shi Xiong a big gift. About a day and a half away from the Apache royal court, the Grim Bear army ushered in a group of people. The head is a guy with colorful feathers. There is no doubt that this guy is the chief of the Apache. It was just that Shi Xiong was a little surprised that the strong warriors in front of this guy each held a wooden stick with a human head in their hands. The look was a little frightening. An Apache ran over on a horse, and then said something in a whisper, and the accompanying Pueblo, who understood Apache, immediately interpreted the stone bear. It turns out that these Apaches directly slaughtered the Comanche people who fled west and the new chiefs of the Comanche people. The heads stuck in the sticks were the heads of the Comanche people who fled west. And the most important thing is that the brave and combative Apaches didn't come here to fight the grizzly army this time. They came to make peace. In their words, they didn't want to be an enemy of the grizzly bear army. They thought they were not the opponent of the grizzly bear army. And the reason why they sent troops to form a coalition with the Comanche last time was that they were bewitched by Daka. Now they have sent the instigator, that is, the head of Daka, just to use this method to show their gesture of seeking peace. They also said that if the Grim Bear army agrees, they can move west to the west of Das Han and cede this area to the Grim Bear army. For such conditions, Shi Xiong felt a little weird at first. The brave and combative Apaches actually made such a choice, which is a bit beyond Shi Xiong's expectation. Shouldn't this sturdy tribe fight to the death? Why was it all at once? But Shi Xiong thought about it later and was relieved. Obviously, among those who were deliberately let go by Stone Bear in the last battle, there must be high-level Apaches, and there should be more than one. The powerful force displayed by the Grumpy Bear army in the last battle must have frightened the senior Apaches. After they went back, they explained the situation. Even if the Apaches were hard to deal with, they would not dare to fight the Grumpy Bear with their lives. The army's heavy firepower struggled hard. The Apaches have been able to fight the Spaniards without defeat for hundreds of years, which is enough to show their sturdiness and shrewdness. A tribe that only knew the use of brute force and force would definitely not be able to stand by the Spaniards for such a long time. Only tribes who are brave and know how to advance and retreat can do this. Obviously, the Apaches are such a tribe that is both brave and knows how to advance and retreat. When the Apache leaders realized that the Grim Bear army was unstoppable, it was inevitable for them to make a decisive retreat strategy. At this time, the new chief Dika, who happened to catch up with the Comanche, led the deserters to their territory. Originally, the failure of the tri-ethnic coalition caused the Apache to lose more than 4,000 elite soldiers, which has already made the Apaches very angry. At this time, Dika was so immortal that he had to send himself to at the door of the Paki. The Apache naturally laughed at this gift. They are worrying about how the violent bear army did not take action against themselves. The Dika who came to the door is undoubtedly a very good meeting ceremony. As a result, it is inevitable that Dika and his men were killed by the Apaches, and then sent over with their heads cut off. For this request of the Apaches, Shi Xiong thought about it and decided to agree to them. The Stone Bear did not want to cause excessive damage to the Apaches, but he also wanted to take this area back. Now that the Apaches are willing to withdraw from this area, this is also a good thing for the Grim Bears. The core area of Apache life is the area between the Colorado Plateau and the Mexican Plateau. To the north of this area is the Navajo territory, and to the south is the Spanish territory. Although the Apaches are tough, it is impossible for them to enter these two areas. Their only retreat is to cross the Rocky Mountains west through the valley between the Sierra Madre Mountains and the Colorado Plateau, approximately in the area near Tucson, and then into California. As for the Aborigines living in Southern California, that is, whether the Chumash people can resist the tough Apaches, it is not a matter for Stone Bear to consider. Anyway, in the near future, Stone Bear has no plans to conquer the coastal area west of the Rocky Mountains. It is not an easy task to climb over the Rocky Mountains, and the place west of the Rocky Mountains is also an existence similar to a chicken rib for a Stone Bear. Maybe the Stone Bear will conquer the long and narrow area in the future, but it is definitely not now. Shi Xiong also suddenly thought of something. If the sturdy Apaches retreat west to California, then they must be able to swallow the weak Chumas in one bite. In this way, the entire California will become the territory of the Apaches. In this way, he occupied the area of northern Mexico. The Spanish would not dare to invade easily, and the more western California was occupied by the Apaches, and the Spanish would not be able to go north along the west coast. In this way, the Spaniards' route to the north can be easily cut off. Even if the Apaches can't withstand the Spaniards' attack, don't they still have themselves in the east? The big deal is to send some weapons and ammunition to the Apaches to help the Apaches resist the Spaniards. In this way, www.wuxiasput.com, the Apaches became their own helpers in the west, and in the process of resisting the Spaniards, if they provided them with more weapons and ammunition or even war horses, they would be able to compete with Apache. Chiron makes a good relationship. When I prepare to conquer the West Coast region in the future, maybe the Apaches will post it themselves. Why doesn't Shi Xiong agree to this kind of thing that kills two birds with one stone? So Shi Xiong readily agreed to the Apache request, but he has repeatedly emphasized that if you leave this area and want to come back, there are only two ways: either to defeat the Grim Bear army stationed here, or to surrender completely. What else can the Apache say about this? They can only migrate westward as a tribe. After finishing the Apache, Shi Xiong led his army on his back, and there was still a Navajo waiting for him to clean up. Once the Navajo is settled, then the entire Southwest will be completely settled. Genius remembers this site address in 1 second. www.81zw.us Bei Chinese website mobile version reading URL m.81zw.us Super Chief Hemo, Chapter 5 and 06 of the Apache who are about to withdraw west. Read for free Chapter 507, Pingding Great Southwest. Although in later generations the Navajo became the most preserved Indian tribe in the entire United States, at this time, compared to the Apaches or even the Comanche, the Navajos are much inferior. Even if there are more Navajos than Apaches and Comanches at this time, this will not change the relatively weak position of the Navajos. However, compared with the Pueblo, the Navajo, who are also aboriginal in the Southwest, are still much stronger. But this kind of strength is paperless in front of the Grim Bear Army. The Grim Bears even collapsed from the Comanche, and it forced the more sturdy Apaches to escape. How could the Navajo be able to resist the Grizzlies? The fact is also true. When the violent Bear Army escorted the Apaches all the way westward, and finally allowed the Apaches to continue westward near the later Yuma, the violent Bear Army began to move north along the Colorado River Valley. Don't look at the Navajo territory as not far from the Apache territory, but there are many mountains between the two. Between the Colorado Plateau, where the Navajo people live, and the Apache area, there are many scattered high mountains, but these high mountains must have the Grim Bear Army travel a long way to reach Navajo people's turf. And going north along the Colorado River is undoubtedly the best way to go. Of course, this area from Yuma to the north along the Colorado River will also become a place under the control of the Grim Bear Army. If the Apaches regret that they want to return from California in the future, then the Colorado River will become a natural barrier, and this moat will also provide enough time for the Grim Bears to react. If the Navajo can be successfully taken down, then the entire Southwest can rely on the steep Rocky Mountains and the rushing Colorado River to form a sufficiently stable line of defense to protect the safety of the Great Southwest. The situation near the Colorado River in this era is much stronger than in later generations. Later Americans built the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River, and as a result, the entire Colorado River was cut off. Although a huge artificial lake like Lake Mead was formed, it also provided sufficient water sources for cities such as Las Vegas. But it caused an irreversible and devastating blow to the ecology of the lower Colorado River. The construction of the Hoover Dam has reduced the originally large area of the downstream grassland in just a few decades, causing a devastating blow to the local ecology that is almost irreversible. But at this time, there is no Hoover Dam and no Lake Mead, so the grassland area in the valley of the lower Colorado River is still very large. In fact, the migration of the Navajo people took place along the valley of the Colorado River. In spring, they will descend south along the Colorado River from the Colorado Plateau, stay in the fertile lower river valley until autumn, and then go north before the winter begins, entering the deep Colorado Grand Canyon, relying on the shelter of the Grand Canyon to escape the winter cold. Only this time, under the leadership of the Pueblos, the Grim Bears marched north along the Colorado River Valley and directly touched the Navajo door from the back. The Navajo obviously did not expect the Grim Bear Army to have such a weird marching route. Their large forces were arranged in the southeast direction, relying on the local terrain to try to resist the invasion of the Grim Bear Army. But it is a pity that Shi Xiong's unreasonable backdoor marching route really caught the Navajo by surprise. When the Grim Bears appeared at the back door of the Navajo, all the Navajo were dumbfounded. Of course they already knew how powerful the Grim Bear Army was. Of the more than 4,000 elite fighters they sent out, fewer than 300 returned from that battle, especially after the soldiers who ran back and the high-level narratives about the horror of the Grim Bear Army. The Navajos were actually shivered. It's just that they obviously don't want to just surrender and disarm, so they still try to rely on the local favorable terrain to resist the Grizzly Bear Army. Unexpectedly, this unreasonable march of the Grim Bear Army completely disrupted the Navajos' preparations. Therefore, 24 huge hot air balloons rose again in the sky, and when the army of tens of thousands of violent bears pressed against the Navajos' door aggressively, The Navajo palace hiding behind completely collapsed. Even if they want to resist, there is no one. Their large forces are all located in the southeast direction, hundreds of miles away from the king's court. Far away cannot quench their thirst. And even if the tribe's troops came back, I am afraid it would be difficult to resist this wolf-like Cherokee. Therefore, the chief of the Navajo people, the Black Hawk, happily led the top of the royal court to walk out. Facing this old guy named Black Hawk, Shi Xiong couldn't help but smile a little, although he knew that the famous Black Shadow helicopter used by American Army Aviation was named after the chief of the Sauk clan. The chief in front of him was also called Black Hawk. The pressure brought by the Grim Bear Army to the Navajo is undoubtedly very huge. When facing the Grim Bear Army armed to the teeth, even the chief of the Black Hawk had to lower his noble head. Especially when he learned from the mouths of the Pueblos who followed the Grim Bear Army that the Comanche had completely surrendered, and the powerful Apache had been forced by the Grim Bear Army to escape. Black Hawk finally recognized the current facts. The fact is simple. There are only two paths before him. One is to completely submit, then the entire Navajo nation will be preserved intact. The second way is to resist to the end, and then the entire Navajo may disappear completely in the long river of history. Under such circumstances, Black Hawk made a wise choice. Like the Pueblos, they surrendered to the Grim Bear Army. Of course, Shi Xiong may have given them good terms. For example, they can continue to live here and manage the Southwest with the Pueblo people. For example, they will get more food and learn more advanced farming methods. Especially they will receive education. The Navajo people don't know what education is. www.wuxiaspa.com. But more food and advanced farming methods are what they need most. Although it is necessary to pay other costs to get these, those costs are nothing compared to the fact that they are now annihilated by the Grim Bear Army. And Stone Bear also promised that the Navajo will receive the same treatment as the Pueblo. Every year, 3,000 fighters from the tribe will be selected to join the Grizzly Army Mixed Division. Each fighter will serve 3 times a year in order to maintain the stability of the Southwest region. Shi Xiong did not hesitate to carry over the military service methods of future generations of soldiers. This is the 3-year conscript's military service. This will speed up the integration of the tribes into the Cherokee tribe as soon as possible, and also stabilize the place. How can Stone Bear let go of things that kill 2 birds with 1 stone? In this way, after a winter of expeditions, the 4 large tribes entrenched in the Southwest, 1 disabled, 1 escaped and 2 returned. The entire southwestern region was completely calmed down. Genius remembers this site address in 1 second. www.81zw.us Bei Chinese website mobile version reading URL m.81zw.us Super Chief Hemo, Chapter 507, Pingding Great Southwest for free reading Chapter 508. 3 years, 1 day in the spring of 1771, Stone Bear stood on the highest floor of the tall main hall of the Great Bear Palace, looking at the rushing Mississippi River hundreds of meters away, and he couldn't help but feel a little trance. Time is like flowing water. Since the suppression of the Great Southwest, 3 years have passed in a flash, and without knowing it, time has quietly entered the 7th decade of the 18th century. And this year, 7 years have passed since the time when his soul was worn. The silly head who was almost killed when he was just wearing his soul has grown from a 16-year-old boy to a real youth, and he has also become the chief of the Cherokee tribe who is currently frightening the entire New World of North America. Looking back on these 7 years, Shi Xiong was also quite moved. Back then, he went to the Gaoshu tribe like a mourning dog, and then with the help of the golden fingers that were almost bug-like, he began to use the Gaoshu tribe as his base and expanded his ambitions. Salt making, coking, steel making, tame bison, promote new farming tools and new farming methods, inspire Patrick Ferguson to develop the Ferguson rifle, defeat the French and Chickasaw coalition forces, confuse a large number of materials from the Alcaran fortress, and be a lover. Baiyunanzio tribe took revenge and led an expedition squad to conquer the Yuchi, and then formed an expeditionary army to conquer the Crees south and the Powhatans east, laying a solid rear for the Cherokee tribe. Then expanded the Grim Bear Army, marched westward to the Chickasaws, crossed the Mississippi River and continued to march westward to the Indian tribes living in the Central Plains and even the West and Southwest, and moved the royal court of the Cherokee from Monongahela to today's Shangjin. The Great Southwest is pacified. In just 4 years, the Cherokee tribe has laid a huge territory under its own leadership. After the Southwest was calmed down, the 3rd Division of the Grim Bear Army, led by the commander of the Mad Bull, moved back eastward, and after crossing the Mississippi River, it directly hit the Choctaws' lair. The Choctaws are also a large tribe of aboriginal people living in the southeastern region of the New World in North America. They have fought with the Cree for hundreds of years. Had it not been for the Choctaw, the Cree would have attacked the Cherokee long ago. The Choctaws' strength is beyond doubt. After all, being able to fight against the Cree for hundreds of years without losing ground is enough to prove their strength. The Choctaws in the original historical time and space are divided into 3 parts: East, West, and South. Most of these 3 are allied with the British, French, and Spaniards. Later, after the founding of the United States, they lived in peace with the Americans for a period of time. It was not until 1830 that they were forced to go to war with the U.S. Army and moved to the reserved area after the defeat. During World War I, some Choctaws joined the U.S. Army in the war. During World War II, they, like the Navajo, used their own language as a code to transmit information. In this era, Choctaws are still very powerful. It's just that after the previous expeditionary army defeated the Cree, it did not continue to attack the South and the West, so both the Seminoles and Choctaws survived by chance. However, with the complete calm of the Great Southwest, Shi Xiong would not allow other disobedient tribes to exist in his rear. Therefore, the 3rd Division of the Grim Bear Army led by the Mad Bull began to conquer the Choctaws and the Seminoles. Before the Mad Bull had led 500 expeditionary soldiers to defend against the southeast of the Cree. The commander of the North American Squadron of the Royal Spanish Navy, Major General Carlos, and the Feliza and Seminoles of the Fernando family united to attack the expeditionary force. As a result, the expeditionary soldiers led by the Mad Bull broke down directly. It was also because of that battle that Major General Carlos knew that the Cherokee had a powerful weapon, bullet barrel, in their hands, and wanted to find a way to make this weapon. As a result, Major Feliza, who went to negotiate, was taken prisoner by Shi Xiong, but in the end Shi Xiong also made friends with the Spaniards by means of Feliza, and used the eliminated arms and technology in his hands to exchange it from the Spaniards. Less good stuff. Up to now, Stone Bear has maintained a deal with the Fernando family, which has also made the Fernando family successfully become Spain's largest arms dealer. Mad Bull returns to this area. Seminole and Choctaw are his targets. As a result, the Choctaws wisely chose to surrender, while the Seminoles, led by their chief O'Mara, tried to rely on the numerous swamps in Florida to resist, and were severely taught by the Black Wolf's Air Force. When the 3rd Division conquered the Choctaws and Seminoles, the entire Grizzly Air Force led by the Black Wolf had already used as many as 66 hot air balloons. With so many hot air balloons flying into the air at the same time, the damage caused is still considerable. If it wasn't for Florida's sea breeze, there are not many good times for the Air Force to fight, and the Black Wolf's Air Force alone would be enough to wipe out the Seminole. Later, Crazy Bull took the soldiers of the 3rd Division into battalions. With the assistance of 55 mortars and grenadiers, they finally made dumplings for the Seminoles. Their chief, O'Mara, was blown into mincemeat by the 76mm medium mortar just developed by the 18R Hats in a battle. In the end, the remaining Seminoles chose to surrender. In the spring and summer of 1769, the 3rd Division completely calmed down the southeast area of the New World. At this point, in the entire New World of North America, except for the westernmost West Coast area, all areas south of 40 degrees north latitude have been controlled by the Cherokee tribe. In general terms, most of the land of later generations of the United States is now completely conquered by Stone Bear. The Grim Bear Army repaired for more than half a year in the second half of 1769. And then in the second year, 1770, It began an attack on the northwest of the Central Plains. Even if there is such a powerful existence as the Sioux League in this direction, www.wuxiaspot.com. But under the strong suppression of the revised and expanded Grim Bear Army, the Sioux League has to lower their heads. It is not that the sturdy Sioux people don't want to resist, but they can't resist at all. After more than half a year of renovation and expansion of the Grim Bear Army, the number of the Grim Bear Army has reached more than 80,000, including the first batch of soldiers selected from the conquered tribes to serve in the military. Although the number of 100,000 people away is still lacking, it is more than enough to deal with the tribes in the northwest. Whether it was the mighty Sioux people, Cheyenne people, or the Gross Winchers and Crow people further away, under the attack of the mighty Grim Bear Army, they all raised the white flag. It took more than half a year for the powerful Grim Bear Army to completely conquer the northwestern region of the New World. Then, when 1771 arrived, the entire North American New World had not yet conquered tribes, except for the Cree people living further north. There were only a few tribes living in the Great Lakes region. This includes the Cherokee's mortal enemy, the Iroquois League. High-speed text hand-playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 509, Daughter of the Earth. To be honest, for the Iroquois, Stone Bear does not have the complicated mood. His soul comes from later generations, let alone Iroquois. Any Indian tribe in this era does not matter to him. However, in how to treat the Iroquois, the Stone Bear must also respect the opinions of most people in the Cherokee tribe. Undoubtedly, since the Iroquois traveled long distances to settle in the Great Lakes region in the early 13th century, and then began farming in the 14th century, the population of the Iroquois has greatly increased. The strength of the Roques has also increased tremendously. Before the 15th century, the Cherokee were actually a branch of the Iroquois. The Iroquois is a typical matriarchal society, and they follow the matriarchy system. So the Iroquois is very special for the election of the leader, that is, the chief. The chief of the Iroquois is not a son of the father's inheritance, because in the eyes of the Iroquois, the chief's son belongs to another clan, not the direct clan. So after the death of the previous chief, the tribe followed. Instead of electing the son of the previous chief as chief, he often elects his brother as chief, or elects his sister's son as chief. All people, men and women, will participate in the election. In fact, the ancestor of the Cherokee was the son of an Iroquois chief, but this son did not have the right to inherit the position of chief of the Iroquois, so the Cherokee became a side branch of the Iroquois. This is like the Longhair Cattle tribe, the Pumpkin Bay tribe, and the Dakingshan tribe to the Gaoshu tribe. According to Chinese customs, the Cherokee and Iroquois are actually a whole family, and they are also the kind of family with a close blood relationship. But later, at the end of the 15th century, the Cherokee, who had grown to a certain extent, were even driven out of the Great Lakes area by the Iroquois and the Delaware. This has to be said to be a tragedy, but the North American Indian tribes in that era were so cruel. The Iroquois and the Delawares launched a war against the Cherokees. The wise Cherokees did not choose to resist, but moved south. Although this was very useless, it kept the Cherokees' strength. In the mid to late 16th century, around 1570, the other tribes of the Iroquois, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Seneca and Kafta the Yuga formed the Iroquois League. Their strength became more and more powerful. Then, the powerful Iroquois alliance killed the Delawares. Except for a few Delawares who fled into the wilderness to the north, the Great Lakes region except Lake Superior in the northwest was controlled by the Ojibwa. In addition, other areas are basically under the control of the Iroquois alliance. By the end of the 17th century, the Iroquois alliance had reached its peak, as the Tasqualola joined the Iroquois alliance in 1722 and became the sixth tribe of the alliance. The Iroquois alliance became the northeastern United States and Canada, the most powerful aboriginal force in the East. The current population of the Iroquois alliance is close to 200,000, and it is the second largest tribal alliance in the entire New World of North America after the Cree people living in Midwestern Canada. For such a tribe, the Stone Bear is not worried. Not to mention that the Cherokee tribe now controls such a large territory. The population of its subordinates is close to 1.5 million. Just relying on the Grim Bear Army, The stone bear has absolute the certainty of the Iroquois smashed out the of the Iroquois. However, the attitude of the tribes towards the Iroquois was something that Stone Bear had to consider. After all, the Cherokee and the Iroquois are a whole family. Even now, what the Cherokee says is exactly the same as what the Iroquois says. Therefore, Shi Xiong stood on the top floor of the giant bear palace blowing the spring breeze and considered it for a long time before deciding to give this option to Hong Yun. Hong Yun is the spiritual leader of this tribe, and it is most appropriate for her to handle this kind of thing. "Abba, my sister is looking for you." There was a tender voice and a low growl behind him. Shi Xiong didn't need to look back to know that it was his son Heclintep who came to find him. Turning around, Shi Xiong was a little bit dumbfounded. 5-year-old Heckle rode on Tep's wide back as usual, but there was a little guy in front of him. It was Tately, who was just over a year old, the second child of Stone Bear, a delicate girl who is indistinguishable from a porcelain doll. Shi Xiong smiled and walked for 2 steps. He picked up his son and daughter one by one, and then Tep sat on the ground in relief, staring at his dad with 2 small eyes. In other words, it means please caress. Shi Xiong smiled and raised his son Heckle to his neck with one hand. The little guy sat on his neck skillfully, grabbing Shi Xiong's hair with both hands, laughing with joy. Shi Xiong's other hand was supporting the girl, and the other hand was free, and then he slapped Tep's head severely, and Tep hummed comfortably. "Be careful, don't fall." The child, as expected, Green Sky Lark walked out of the house with this voice. "Don't worry, how could I fall? Our baby, is it a baby?" Shi Xiong raised the girl to his face, and asked with a smile, while kissing her with a big mouth full of stubble. Tatari. He smiled and pushed Shi Xiong's face with his little fleshy hands, and protested vaguely, "No kiss, prick." The girl's sweet and glutinous voice almost melted Shi Xiong's heart. Green Sky Lark came over and wanted to take over the girl. After taking over the girl's face, she held Bubba's neck with her little hand and didn't let go. The angry Green Sky Lark murmured a few words in dissatisfaction. "Ha ha, the girl is a relative with her father. You can't be jealous of this." Shi Xiong smiled and teased the Green Sky Lark. www.wuxiaspa.com. Now the Green Sky Lark has completely become a charming young woman, especially with the birth of a girl. She has an unspeakable demeanor. Seeing the dissatisfied expression, Tatari seemed to be mad, pouting her mouth and smearing Shi Xiong's big face. Tatari means daughter of the earth in Cherokee, like her brother Heckle. She is named after the earth. The fault is the Stone Bear, and I dare not use such an atmospheric name to name the child. But who allowed Shi Xiong to lead his tribe to lay down such a large territory? He is now the first chief in the entire Cherokee history. Even if you look at all the tribes of the North American Indians, no one can do such a feat as a Stone Bear. The current Cherokee chief, the Great Bear, is recognized as the king of the earth, and his children are naturally qualified to be named after the earth. High-speed text hand playing Super Chief Chapter List. Chapter 510, Big Change in Beijing. Looking at the 2 men, Green Sky Lark was also dumbfounded. That is to say, in front of the child and himself, this Warkif, who makes the whole world tremble, will reveal the childlike habits. Green Sky Lark smiled and said, "I want to discuss something with you." "Well, just say something," Shi Xiong said with a smile while teasing the 2 little guys. For him, teasing children is the best way to rest, and it is also his favorite thing to do. "Isn't it about to be the death day of Aba and a sister? I want to take the child back to see Aba and a sister." Green Sky Lark's face was a little sad. Hearing this, Shi Xiong's face also became a little difficult to look. With a sigh, he hugged the girl in his arms and said, "Go, take the children and take a boat over and have a look." "I won't go anymore. I feel uncomfortable after going." Green Sky Lark bit his lower lip and nodded, and glittering tears could be seen faintly in his eyes. It's not that Shi Xiong didn't want to see Bai Yun and Lei Ying, but he couldn't walk away. Many major events in the tribe required him to make decisions. How could he walk away? Another thing is, if it does go, that kind of sadness is enough to make Shi Xiong feel overwhelmed for half a month. Instead of that, it's better not to go altogether. Although it is far from Shangjing to the Zhao tribe, it is not difficult to walk, especially by water. You can directly reach the mouth of the valley where the Xiao tribe is located. Moreover, the Xiao tribe is still heavily guarded by soldiers. That saltpeter mine is a very important mine, and Stone Bear doesn't want to give up there. There is a battalion force there, and the battalion commander is the big mountain in the Xiao tribe. In fact, in terms of Das Han's strength and qualifications, he can even become the commander of a mixed division, but he has been sticking to the Xiao tribe, watching the saltpeter mine for Shi Xiong wanted to grant him a higher rank, but he didn't accept it, so much so that he is still a battalion commander. There was a big mountain there, and 3 more heavily armed inland river armed transport ships were sent to them on the road. If they took the waterway, Shi Xiong didn't worry about the safety of the 3 mothers of the green sky lark. Now this large area from Shangjing to Xiao tribe is already the core hinterland of the entire Cherokee tribe, and there can be no danger here. Besides, even if it takes 10,000 steps, some people want to think about the 3 green larks and their mothers. There are 3 inland river armed transport ships equipped with 76mm mortars, and they can definitely suppress everything. Factors of stability. This matter was settled in the discussion between the couple. Green Sky Lark took the 2 little guys away. Shi Xiong patted Tep's head. Tep stood up against the female wall, and his father looked at the hugely changed Beijing at his feet. Shangjing is not what it was 3 years ago. Even if only 3 years have passed, Shangjing at this time can be called a city. This city, built on the basis of the logistics camp of the Western Expeditionary Forces, was just a bungalow 3 years ago. But now, in the core area of Shangjing, there are many more small buildings of 2 or 3 floors, as well as many manors or castles covering a wide area. The area here is large enough, so in addition to the basic plan of the mouth, there are not too many restrictions on the building. Stone Bear. Under the leadership and training of Richardson, the alchemist who is proficient in architecture and the 18 hats, there are now many Cherokee people who specialize in building design and construction in Shangjing. With the application of reinforced concrete, more and more multi-story buildings have begun, just like the main hall of the Giant Bear Palace standing at the feet of the Stone Bear. The height reached an astonishing 30 meters. For later generations, that is the height of a 9-story building. In addition to the Great Bear Palace, the Red Palace where the headquarters of the Red City Alliance is located and the White House where the headquarters of the White City Alliance are located are also extremely large. In addition, like the Prophet's Palace where Hong Yun lives, it is also a large building that is well known throughout Shangjing. The Bear Palace is undoubtedly the center of the city, but because the Bear Palace was built about 300 meters away from the west bank of the Mississippi River, and between the river bank and the main hall of the Bear Palace is more than 300 meters wide. The green belt is about 1 kilometer long, so the entire Shangjing is now centered on the Giant Bear Palace, radiating in 3 directions, north, west, and south in a fan shape. If the current Shangjing is a huge folding fan, then the Giant Bear Palace in the center is undoubtedly the nail of this huge fan. The 9 broad and straight avenues are the fan bones of this giant fan, and the large and small buildings are the fan of this giant fan. As early as when Shangjing was built, Shi Xiong made such a plan. So even if there are tens of thousands of buildings of various sizes and more than 100,000 people living in Shangjing, the city still looks very regular. The experience borrowed from the big cities of later generations gave the city many urban functional areas such as office areas, residential areas, and trading areas. There is no need to worry about the expansion of the city in the future. As long as the original plan is followed, the city will continue to just extend the 9 avenues as fan bones, and the area between each avenue will become larger and larger, and it can also accommodate more and more people. The green belt from the east of the Bear Palace to the west bank of the Mississippi River is more than 300 meters wide and 1 kilometer from north to south, which is the exclusive garden belt of the Bear Palace. The docks standing on the west bank of the Mi River are on the north and south sides of this garden belt. Except for extremely important buildings such as the Giant Bear Palace, the Red Palace, the White Palace, and the Palace of the Prophet, in Shangjing, which are castle-like buildings with tall walls, none of the other buildings have any walls higher than 4 meters in height. There are no walls in the whole city. In this regard, It is no different from those modern cities in later generations. As for the defense of the city, www.wuxiasput.com, this is very simple. The 76mm caliber mortar we have now has an effective range of up to 4 kilometers. With such an effective range, there is no need to worry about the defense of the city. And under the guidance of Shi Xiong, under the leadership of the 18 Arhats, the military has now entered the experimental stage for the research and development of the 76mm cannon. Once this 76mm caliber cannon with 35 times the body-to-diameter ratio can be tested successfully, then the Grim Bear Army will have an extra big killer. Even if the caliber is only 76mm, when this cannon uses smokeless gunpowder as the propellant, the effective range of the shell can reach an astonishing 8 kilometers. Although it has not reached the effective range of the later modern 76mm cannon, which is an effective range of 134 kilometers, in this era, the effective range of 8 kilometers is also an absolute artifact. Once these two 76mm heavy firepower are deployed around Shangjin, what wall defense is needed? These two heavy weapons alone are enough to shut out enemies who dare to covet the capital. High-speed text and playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 511, Ms. 75 of France. In fact, the development of such 76mm mortars and cannons is thanks to Jack Williams and David Adian, the two European alchemists who followed the Stone Bear first. The former is an Englishman who is proficient in machinery manufacturing, while the latter, although a Frenchman, has an outstanding talent in metal smelting. With them, and with the help of the alchemists who were later brought by Hank and the guidance of Stone Bear, Jack Williams finally succeeded in improving the steam engine, and at the same time, he also made a large caliber precision boring machine for artillery boring. The processing technology of artillery is much higher than that of rifles, especially the processing technology of barrels and metal materials, which are extremely demanding. Shi Xiong knows very well that although he has produced grenadiers and mortars, these two weapons belong to the category of small calibers. Even if the caliber of the 55 mortar can be regarded as a medium caliber, the range is still limited. The power of this weapon. Therefore, in order to ensure the homeland security of the future Indian Empire, the research and development of large-caliber artillery must be put on the agenda. To develop large-caliber artillery, the first thing to solve is the problem of metal materials. The 76mm caliber is only 2 centimeters larger than the 55mm caliber, but there is a huge gap in the requirements for metal materials. And whether it is a grenadier or a mortar, the requirements for the barrel are not very high, but if you want to develop a real howitzer or cannon, then the requirements for the metal material of the barrel are raised by more than 1 grade. The steel smelting formulas that Shi Xiong had in his hands before were at best able to make some heavy weapons such as grenades or mortars. It would be a long way from making a more powerful cannon or even a howitzer with a longer range. Therefore, the smelting of metal materials has become the most critical part. However, David Adian was there, and the Stone Bear knew the performance of some metal materials in later generations, so under his guidance, David Adian made countless attempts and finally found a few the smelting formula of a qualified metal material. After constant elimination and experimentation, David Adian finally determined a steel that can be used to build a 76mm cannon or howitzer barrel. But even so, the life of a barrel made of this steel is not very long. Like the 76 mortar barrel made of this kind of steel, it can fire up to 340 rounds, but when used to make howitzer barrels, the life of this type of barrel is immediately reduced to only 120 rounds. And if it is used to make a more powerful cannon barrel, the life of the barrel will be reduced, and it can only fire up to 90 to 100 rounds. This type of barrel life is obviously not enough, but Shi Xiong can't help it for the time being. The material is not something that can be made by just making it. It takes countless attempts to find the best formula, and now there are no electric furnaces, even converters and flat furnaces. It is really good to be able to make such steel with the only earth and blast furnace at hand. With steel that barely meets the requirements, Jack Williams can cast the corresponding machinery. While David Adian was thinking about the material formula, Jack Williams started to improve the steam engine under the guidance of Stone Bear and began the development of large-diameter boring machines. In fact, at this time, Mr. James Watt, who was far away in Europe, had already produced an improved steam engine several years in advance. However, due to the same limitation of materials, Watt's improved steam engine has not been used on a large scale. In the original historical time and space, the improvement of the Newcomen steam engine was completed in 1765, but because the materials used to make the cylinders did not meet the requirements, and the process for making the cylinders did not meet the requirements, this improved Newcomen the door steam engine has not been widely used. It was only after Watt and John Wilkinson met in 1774 that the machining process of the steam engine cylinder was solved. Speaking of this John Wilkinson, I have to mention the world's first boring machine that can precisely boring large caliber barrels. This type of boring machine was made by John Wilkinson, and he also used this technology of processing artillery barrels to make steam engine cylinders for Watt, which allowed Watt's improved steam engine to be promoted on a large scale. Shi Xiong pointed out that the boring machine made by Jack Williams that can accurately boring the barrel of a large caliber artillery was a technique that was stolen from John Wilkinson. In this era, the boring machine technology of John Wilkinson is naturally very secret, but the body of the unsupportable Stone Bear contains a soul from later generations. In later generations, Wilkinson's boring machine technology has no confidentiality at all, and this technology has been backward and indistinguishable from the primitive people. If it weren't for the nature of Shi Xiong's work in his previous life, he would not have specifically understood this kind of old-fashioned technology. As a result, I didn't expect that the understanding of the previous life would be used in this life. Jack Williams had built this boring machine and an improved steam engine model from wood long before the new metal materials were available. Therefore, after David Adian's new model passed the test, Jack Williams immediately built several boring machines and steam engines in the shortest time. The 76 mortar was quickly developed and passed the test. And now Jack Williams's focus is on the 76mm cannon. There are already prototypes of this cannon, and it is also being tested. Of course, this 76mm cannon was imitated by Stone Bear pointing Jack Williams according to the later French Miss 75. In the original historical time and space, the French launched a cannon that shocked the world in 1897. The famous M1897 75mm cannon. When the Armstrong breech gun installed by other European powers in the 19th century only had 2 shots per minute, the French introduced this M1897 75mm cannon equipped with a retreating machine, reaching an amazing reloading speed of 15 rounds per minute. At the limit, it can even reach a reloading speed of 30 rounds per minute. www.wuxiaspot.com. Such a reloading speed in that era is like the Stone Bear using grenadiers. In this era the barrel is as incredible as the mortar. Moreover, the total weight of the M1897 75mm cannon is less than 1,200 kilograms, and the effective range is 8.5 kilometers. Therefore, when this artillery was launched, it immediately won the nickname of Miss France 75 inches. The artillery developed by the Cherokee is a fake Miss 75 under the guidance of Shi Xiong. As for the shells, Jack Williams has also developed a machine that can make all-metal shells under the guidance of Shi Xiong. Even the boring machine for precision boring of the barrel has come out, and the machine that makes all-metal shells can't help Williams. And now Shi Xiong has smokeless gunpowder technology, Shukiz's technology, and even lightning mercury technology. The foundation for making all-metal shells is already in place. High-speed text hand-playing Super Chief Chapter List Chapter 512, Right Arm. Strictly speaking, the processing technology of shells is lower than that of bullets. After all, the caliber of cannonballs is much larger than bullets. In contrast, the fault tolerance rate is higher. But even so, the difficulty of producing an all-metal shell is much greater than the grenade used by the 55 mortar. The machine developed by Jack Williams said that it can make shells, but in fact it can only make shells. For example, the primer of the shells, the filling of the propellant inside, and the combination of the warhead and the shell are all achieved manually. Therefore, The production of this 76 mm all-metal shell is really troublesome. Fortunately, the material for the production of shells, that is, copper, is abundant in the territory controlled by the Cherokee. Leaving aside the Bingham Canyon Copper Mine, the world's largest open-pit copper and gold mine near Salt Lake City, Utah, the copper mines in Colorado alone are enough for the Stone Bears to have enough copper in their hands. The later generations of Colorado and Utah were land controlled by the Arapajos, but they have been taken into the bag by the Stone Bears early. Therefore, the various mineral resources abundant in this large area have been slowly developed in the past 3 years. Moreover, the Cherokee's lair, that is, there are many small copper mines in the Appalachian Mountains. The Stone Bear has not been found before, but when he became the chief of the Cherokee, he had long let the people look for it. There are such copper mines, and now many small copper mines have been found there. It's just that one of these copper mines in the Appalachian Mountains is small in scale, and most of them are not open-pit mines, so mining is very troublesome. Many copper mines in Colorado not only had large reserves, but also had high grades. Many of them were open-pit mines that could be directly mined. In addition, Xinjiang was not very far from the copper mines in Colorado, and the Kansas River Channel could be used. So now most of the Cherokee copper mining is dominated by copper mines in Colorado. The most important thing is that copper mines are often accompanied by gold and silver mines. The importance of gold and silver is unquestionable. Since a country is to be established in the future, gold and silver, which are precious metals, should be considered for reserves from now on. In the future, whether it is to trade with Europe, or to realize the dream of crossing the Pacific Ocean to China for trade on the other side of the Pacific, it will be inseparable from gold and silver. Even in later generations, gold and silver are both important precious metal reserves of a country. Of course, Stone Bear should pay attention to it in this era. In any case, Xinjiang now has the embryonic form of a metropolis. Perhaps the area of Xinjiang is not as large as the Cahokia civilization of the ancient Indians, but the number of Indians living in Xinjiang has far exceeded that of the Cahokia civilization that has disappeared in the flood. In this regard, Shi Xiong is also extremely proud. After all, this city can be said to have been established under his single-handed impetus. And with this city as a template, more cities belonging to North American Indians will appear on this continent in the future. Feeling the warming spring breeze, and looking at the city under his feet, Shi Xiong was even lost for a moment. The guard came up quietly, and a few meters away, whispered to remind the chief who is comparable to the gods, the chief, the high priest Kabru, the great witch doctor of Bakarazut, the leader of Karakrilu, the Magdalian chief, the bighorn sheep chief, the Kiro cow chief, the Bigfoot chief, and the tall cow chief have all arrived and are waiting for you. Shi Xiong turned around, looked at the loyal guard officer, smiled slightly and said, "Okay, I will go down now." The guard quietly retreated to the side and made way for Shi Xiong. When Shi Xiong came to the main hall of the Giant Bear Palace, more than a dozen people were waiting for him there. Seeing the Stone Bear walk in, these people all stood up and bowed to salute, including Kabru High Priest Hong Yun. The Stone Bear now is not the Stone Bear when he just became the chief 4 years ago. In the past 4 years, the violent bear army he has formed has fought in the West, and has laid down a huge territory that these people could not even imagine before. They thoroughly witnessed the strength of the chieftain, the Son of God. Now it is no exaggeration to say that among the entire Cherokee tribe and many tribes conquered by the Cherokee tribe, Chief Great Bear, the Son of God, is a living legend, and he is the agent of the gods in the world. The prestige of Stone Bear is unimaginable now. He only needs to say a word, and the 1.5 million Indians living on this land will fight for him. Because everyone understands that under his leadership, the Indians who could not have enough to eat can now eat their stomachs. The warhorses that were once so precious are now popular products. All kinds of things that were unimaginable are now available. Has begun to walk into thousands of households. All of this was brought by this amazingly sized Son of God. Therefore, even Kabru High Priest Hong Yun now admires the Stone Bear very much. Now, Stone Bear is the ruler of this land, a unique king. Haha, sit down, we don't need to be so polite between us. Shi Xiong twirled the golden ring on his left ring finger, and said to these people with a smile, "These people are Shi Xiong's most powerful subordinates, who have been walking with Shi Xiong all these years. In particular, the leader of Jiao Niu, who has now been promoted to the mayor of Shangjin, is also Shi Xiong's uncle. That's right, as the saying goes, one person can get to the heavens." I'm reading www.hukinshu. Although Com does not have this sentence on the North American Indian side, the same truth still exists. The Stone Bear became the chief of the Cherokee tribe, and he also led the Grim Bear army to lay down such a territory, pushing the Cherokee tribe to an unimaginable peak, which also made those who followed the Stone Bear the most extreme great power. It's like the former leader of the Gaoshu tribe, Bigfoot, has now become the new leader of the White City Alliance, and Shi Xiong's uncle, Jiao Niu, has become the first mayor of Beijing. This is a matter of course, no matter how you say it. Jiao Niu and Dai Jiao are the people Shi Xiong trusts most. As for Hong Yun, let alone, she is now not only the high priest of the Cherokee tribe, but also the first person to support the Stone Bear. As for Zhou Laklilu, Bighorn Goat, Mad Lion, and Kiro Cow, they have always been hardcore supporters of Stone Bear, and they have been Stone Bear's right-hand man for years. Therefore, today's meeting about how to develop in the future and when to start conquests against the northern tribes is unfolding among these people. High-speed text hand-playing Super Chief chapter list. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513, Joint Meeting. Shi Xiong had no good impression of Wen Chan Huai in his last life, and he could not participate if he could not participate, but in this life, he has inevitably fallen into various meetings. In fact, before the Stone Bear soul was worn to this sage, there were basically no meetings in the royal court of the Cherokee tribe. Even if there were, it was only a small-scale discussion between the top levels. Shi Xiong didn't want to be like this either, but as the territory grew larger and the population under his jurisdiction became larger and larger, things within the tribe were really a multitude of things. Shi Xiong felt more and more that he was very alone. It is difficult to take into account all aspects. 3 heads can still tops huge Liang. Since I can't take care of so many things by myself, let more people participate in the management, then, more and more meetings are inevitable. This is also something that can't be helped. Meetings are not something you can pretend to be. Meetings are actually a very good management method and the most advanced management method in the entire management level. With the meeting model, the meaning of the top leader can be clearly communicated to the following, and the top leader can also gather the problems discovered by many managers to make the most accurate judgment. It's like the joint meeting we held this time, arguably the highest level meeting of the entire tribe. The purpose is to determine how the Cherokee tribe should develop in the next few years, and whether it should deal with all the people in the north now. The tribe launched an expedition, especially the former. It is related to the Cherokee tribe's development plan. It is a strategic issue and must be decided by the highest level of the tribe. As for the latter, it can only be regarded as a tactical issue, but this tactic is very important now, and it is related to strategic decision-making. So the first discussion is whether to start a northern expedition to the various tribes in the north. Master Chief, I think we should temporarily suspend the northern expedition. In the past 3 years, you have led our Grim Bear army to lay a huge territory and accepted many tribesmen. We need time to digest the results of the past 3 years. It takes enough time for the tribes we conquered to merge in as much as possible. I think this is what we should do the most. After Stone Bear threw out the question of whether or not the northern expedition, Zhou Lakrilu was the first to speak. As Shi Xiong's right-hand man, he manages a lot of things. He naturally wants to get more time to stabilize the internal when he speaks this idea. It is no exaggeration to say that the 2 most powerful subordinates of the Stone Bear are the Bighorn Sheep, and the other is Jirakrilu. The former is a gun in Shi Xiong's hand, which means to hit where it is. The latter is the most important member of the internal affairs of Shi Xiong. and his main responsibility is to integrate all the tribes that have been conquered into the tribe as quickly as possible. It can be said practically that the existence of Bighorn Sheep and Kara Klilu has replaced the roles of the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance. Although the Red City Alliance still advocates conquests outside and the White City Alliance is peaceful inside, these two are actual operators both externally and internally, and their power is tight. But compared to the Bighorn Sheep, Jolaklilu's hands are undoubtedly more powerful. While external conquest is important, it is even more important to consolidate the results of the conquest. And it is impossible for Shi Xiong to delegate all military power to the Bighorn Sheep. The Stone Bear knows the importance of guns, so even if the Bighorn Sheep is now the supreme commander of the Grim Bear Army, the commanders of the 8 divisions and the staff of the entire Grim Bear Army are all it was the person Shi Xiong trusted the most. These 8 division commanders must obey the Bighorn Sheep's orders normally, but if the Bighorn Sheep has any rebellious thoughts, as long as it shows a little, then any division commander can directly dismiss the Bighorn Sheep from the commander position. Bighorn Sheep is just the highest commander responsible for issuing orders, and apart from a small number of guards, he does not directly control the force. It is the 8 commanders who directly control the force. This is also a kind of checks and balances for the Stone Bear. In addition to the Stone Bear, no matter who sits in the position of the Bighorn Sheep, he must unconditionally accept this arrangement. And Jolaklilu is different. He himself has a very high talent for internal affairs, so letting him manage internal affairs will undoubtedly free Shi Xiong from many complicated things. And Jolaklilu is not only the first Iron to follow Stone Bear, he doesn't have any force in his hands, so Stone Bear can safely leave him to do a lot of things and completely delegate power to him. Using the classification of later generations, that is, the Bighorn Sheep is only a minister of defense, and Kara Klilu is the prime minister. As for the commander-in-chief and the president of the armed forces, that is the Stone Bear, no one else can replace it. It is precisely for this reason that Jolaklilu made such a request at the beginning of the meeting, and even Stone Bear had to pay attention to it. The Bighorn Sheep knows where he is, so when Jolaklilu made this proposal, he just shut up and said nothing. Shi Xiong looked at his iron subordinates, smiled and asked, "Who else has the same opinion?" Hong Yun coughed and said, "My chief, I agree with Kara Klilu's proposal. We do need time to merge now. Our early steps were too big and too fast. We swallowed such a large territory in 3 years. And population? If we continue to be so radical, internal instability will easily occur." Hong Yun is the high priest of the tribe, and his status is second only to Shi Xiong. www.wuxiaspot.com. Although she doesn't express much opinion, once she speaks, Shi Xiong should also attach great importance to it. As the current chief of the White City Alliance, Kairakau, the chief of the Great Hill Tribe, also said, "Chief, I think the words of Kara Klilu and Kabru are very reasonable. I support them." Opinion. Although Kairakau is not the first Iron to follow the Stone Bear, he has been the leader of the White City Alliance over the years. In terms of internal affairs, he knows the most about the internal affairs of the entire clan, except for Kara Klilu. He and Mad Lion are now in charge of the logistics of the entire tribe. The Mad Lion, who is over 50 years old, also nodded slowly. "Master Chief, we need some time to hoard some more supplies. In addition to food, we are now enough to eat. Other things, whether it is ammunition or transportation, tools, we all need to hoard more." Hong Yun said again, "And our education also needs to be promoted faster." Chief, you said before that education is the most important thing for our tribe besides food and military, but our education promotion speed is not very fast. This is mainly because the tribes we conquered are somewhat resistant to the promotion of language and characters, and they are more accustomed to using their native language. This is obviously not a very good phenomenon. We must take a certain amount of time to change this kind of situation. Even if it is forced to promote, we must achieve the kind of books with text, cars with tracks, and lines of the same that you mentioned before. Only by doing this, we can completely integrate those tribes. Otherwise, The potential danger is too great. Ishikama nodded silently. Chapter 514. Suspend the Northern Expedition. Judging from the speeches of these few people so far, it is obvious that these high-level officials in charge of internal affairs tend not to launch the Northern Expedition for the time being. However, as a leader, Shi Xiong is very clear about the principle of listening to both sides will be clear, and partial listening will be dark. He will not squander the opinions of the Red City Alliance just because these senior executives in charge of internal affairs have expressed their own opinions. Therefore, Shi Xiong naturally brought this topic to the Red City Alliance. Bighorn Sheep, tell me your opinion. You are the highest commander of the Grim Bear Army. If you have any thoughts, please speak up here. The Bighorn Sheep nodded and stood up. The first thing to explain is that the morale of the Grim Bear Army is now booming, and the soldiers are full of confidence in the Northern Expedition. The chief painted a long time ago about this continent, the map. All the soldiers of the Grim Bear Army have seen them. They are all looking forward to lay down all the land for the chief and our tribe. The soldiers are always ready to open up the territory for the chief and the tribe, and then establish a belonging own empire. The words of the Bighorn Sheep immediately ignited the atmosphere in the main hall of the Giant Bear Palace. The expedition squad with only 100 people at that time has now developed into a huge army with 8 divisions and a total of more than 80,000 people. In addition, the Grim Bear Army has been invincible over the years, and it is an entire tribe. The greatest guarantee of force. Even Stone Bear is proud of the Grim Bear Army. Obviously, the current top commander of the Grim Bear Army stated the current state of the Grim Bear Army, which is very good, very good. All the soldiers are waiting for their lives, ready to conquer the next tribe for the tribe and the chief. This kind of strong morale is undoubtedly very exciting, even if the high level of these tribes are excited after hearing these words, because this just shows the strength of the tribe. The Bighorn Sheep looked around for a while and then continued, the 80,000 soldiers of the Grim Bear Army have been prepared for a long time, but whether or not to launch the Northern Expedition depends on whether your support is in place. We all know that war is in place. Once the machine is activated, the daily consumption is an astronomical figure. Even if we only need to dispatch 3 to 4 divisions in the Northern Expedition, we cannot carry the Northern Expedition to the end without sufficient logistical support. So, the opinion is simple. Whether or not the Northern Expedition is possible, it depends on how much support everyone here can give. After a pause, the Bighorn Sheep hesitated for a moment. Chief, I have a little bit of it here that I don't know if it's inappropriate. Shi Xiong smiled and nodded and said, Bighorn Sheep, just say it if you have anything. You are the military responsibility of our tribe. No matter what ideas and opinions you have, we will attach great importance to it. That's good. The Bighorn Sheep nodded. Actually, if I follow my ideas, I am not inclined to expedite the north immediately. We just calmed down the Sioux League and Cheyenne in the northwest. Although there is no loss to the army, the 9th and 10th mixed divisions to be formed need to add more soldiers. So I think we should pause for a period of time so that the subsequent mixed divisions and soldiers can better integrate in together, form combat effectiveness as soon as possible. In this way, in case our main force encounters any problems during the Northern Expedition, the mixed division can immediately pull up the main force to share the troubles. Therefore, the respected chief, and everyone, my personal opinion is to suspend the Northern Expedition. Shi Xiong nodded slightly again, and then he looked at Kuaima, Bones Bear, Crazy Bull, Black Wolf, Hard Bones and others. These people are all representatives of the military strength, and they are all divisional commanders, and the Black Wolf is the commander of the Air Force. And the Hard Bones that have been following the Stone Bear, this little guy who fled from the Longhair Cattle tribe to the High Tree tribe with Stone Bear and Kuaima, has now become a strong young man, and he is also a father. Fast Horse, Bones Bear, and Crazy Bull, as the commanders of the most powerful 1st, 2nd and 3rd divisions and the Violent Bear Army, undoubtedly have the right to speak. However, after the 3 of them looked at each other, Kuaima said on behalf of the 3 main divisions, Boss, we also think what the Bighorn commander said makes sense. We have been conquering for the past 3 years, although the brothers are very morale, and are all looking forward to taking down those tribes in the north in one go, but I know very well that it will take some time for my brothers to take a good rest, otherwise, problems will easily occur. Kui Ma is Shi Xiong's most trusted brother, and there is no one. Shi Xiong should pay special attention to his words. The Black Wolf said, Master Chief, although our air force is fine, but I think our air force needs more hot air balloons to form a more powerful group bombing capability, to open up a better battlefield for the Army brothers, and to reduce the Army brothers' our casualties. It will take time. The power of the Air Force is now known to everyone. This kind of service where only they beat others and others cannot beat them is really too powerful. The fault is that it is restricted by the weather and wind direction. Otherwise, if the Grim Bear Army has more than 200 hot air balloons, and there is no weather and wind direction restrictions, if so, the Air Force alone can easily destroy a tribe. Although the current Air Force is far from being able to compare with the real Air Force of later generations, it has already made its mark. The Black Wolf must also take it seriously. Nodded. www.wuxiaspot.com. Shi Xiong looked at the hard bones again. The hard bones have been busy with the Navy over the years, and at this time they have grown into the leader of the Cherokee Navy, and their status is at the same level as the Black Wolf. If it is the Northern Expedition, it is undoubtedly the best way to use the Mississippi River Channel to transport troops and logistical materials. Therefore, the hard bones of the Navy commander seem to be particularly important. At present, the Cherokee Navy is already very large. The inland armed transport ships traded from the Fernando family, the inland armed transport ships intercepted from the French, and the inland armed transport ships built by the tribe themselves. The tribe has already owned more than 140 inland river armed transport ships with a carrying capacity of about 50 or 60 tons. Whether it was to calm down the Great Southwest or conquer the Great Northwest, the role of the Navy was unparalleled. 80% of the logistics of the soldiers ahead were transported by Navy. The hard bones pondered a little and said, Boss, our Navy has no problems here. We can dispatch at any time. Moreover, the shipyard has built 2 inland sailing warships that can be equipped with 76mm cannons. As long as the cannons pass the test, our Navy all can act as vanguards. However, since the other brothers feel that this is not a good time for the Northern Expedition, then I will not express any other opinions. I can only tell everyone that our Navy can set off at all times. After listening to the hard bones, Shi Xiong groaned for a moment and said, Good, then suspend the Northern Expedition. The whole army will be repaired, and the whole family will vigorously prepare for the Northern Expedition. Everyone said yes. Chapter 515, Suitable Time. For this result, Shi Xiong is not surprised. In fact, before the convening of this joint meeting, Shi Xiong made an analysis on whether to proceed with the Northern Expedition now. Of course, it would be beneficial to carry out the Northern Expedition at this time. For example, in the past 2 years, the Grim Bear Army has taken the Great Southwest and the Great Northwest in a devastating manner, especially the conquered Sioux League and the Cheyenne, which directly shocked all the Indian tribes in the north. The sturdiness of the Sioux people is not just talking about it, it is really sturdy. The powerful Cree population living in central and eastern Canada is so large that the Cree people originally wanted to go south, but they were forced back by the Sioux, and they have been staying in the cold Canada until now. Are you a Cree and don't want to go south? Don't want to live in the warmer Central Plains? But the problem is that the Sioux people are like a great wall, firmly blocking the Carrie people from going south. The Sioux League, with a population of only about 100,000, can block the Cree, who has twice the population of them, to the north, which proves the strength of the Sioux. As a close neighbor of the Sioux, the Cheyenne not only fights with the Sioux people, but also fights with the Crow and the North. What's more advantageous is that the Cheyenne not only fights with the 2 neighbors of the Sioux and the Crow all day long, it is also a mortal enemy of the Kiowa people in the south. In other words, the Cheyenne people have no strong enemies except for the presence of the tall Rocky Mountains in the west, and they have deadly enemies in the north, east, and south directions. However, the Cheyenne, who also had a population of less than 100,000, froze the attack of the Sioux, Crow, and Kiowa, and they lived quite comfortably. This is enough to prove the sturdiness of Cheyenne. That is definitely a terrifying tribe that can be compared with the Sioux and even surpasses the Sioux in some respects. Are such two sturdy and powerful tribes in the Northwest and the entire North. In less than 3 months, they have fallen under the hands of the Cherokees. How powerful are the Cherokees? Didn't you see that even the Crow people migrated northward at night? If the Crow did not leave, no one would doubt that the Crow would also fall. And the remaining tribes in the north already know. The powerful tribes living south of them have now been conquered by the Cherokee. Such a powerful tribe is staring in the south, who is not afraid. If the Grim Bear army attacked at this time, the tribes in the north would be easily disintegrated. Therefore, the northern expedition is also beneficial at this time. However, Shi Xiong is also worried that the Grim Bear army's 3-year conquest will cause fatigue. This is not only physical fatigue, but more serious psychological fatigue. Moreover, many soldiers of the Grim Bear army have been in the army for so many years, and some veterans should also retreat from the front line and become instructors of the second line. And so many tribes have been conquered in the past 3 years. It will also take time for these conquered tribes to merge in. Therefore, from the perspective of stability, it makes sense to suspend the northern expedition. Now, with the end of this joint meeting, Shi Xiong has made a decision in his heart, that is, to suspend the northern expedition and to consolidate the current situation with all his strength. In fact, even if it delayed the northern expedition for 2 years, Shi Xiong felt that it didn't matter. The tribes living in the Great Lakes area are now either very good at hooking up with the British or with the French. Now if these tribes are rashly moved, maybe the British and the French will get involved. Especially the French, because of the rapid rise of the tribe and the move of the royal court to the shore of the Mi River. It directly cut off the Mississippi River, causing the French to suffer great losses. Coupled with the fact that in the past few years, the French were dissatisfied and sent people over to attack the Akron Fortress and the Memphis Fortress, and they were beaten by the violent Bear Army. Therefore, the tribe and the French have long become immortal enemies. Near the Mi River, the French are powerless against the tribe, but once the tribe really expedition to the north and enter the Great Lakes region, then no one can guarantee that the French sailing battleship will enter the Great Lakes along the St. Lawrence River. And the Great Lakes area is an area that the French have been operating for a long time. The French have a deep-rooted influence in that area. It is obviously not the right time to venture there and compete with the French. Similarly, the British have just won the 7 Years' War and are now busy taking over the Great Lakes area with all their strength. The British also regard the Great Lakes area as forbidden. If the tribe's expedition to the north, the British might also take action. Although Shi Xiong is not worried about the French and the British, even if the two work together, Shi Xiong is sure to beat them away. But it is obviously not a good strategy to get into two powerful enemies for no reason. If this is the case, why not wait until the War of Independence breaks out? Once the gunshots of Lexington, a small village north of Boston, sounded, let alone the British, even the French would no longer care about the Indian tribes of the Great Lakes region. If the historical deviation does not show a big change, then there is still a full 4 years before the sound of the Lexington gun. www.wuxiaspot.com. If you take advantage of these 4 years to consolidate the current as a result, if all the tribes that have been conquered are completely integrated, it is definitely a good time to take advantage of the outbreak of the War of Independence and then attack the tribes in the north. Even if this historical time and space has changed because of its own arrival and the rise of the Cherokee tribe, that doesn't matter. In any case, it is necessary to develop the internal affairs properly. The increase of food production, the increase of the population, the promotion of education, the integration of other tribes, and the integration of mixed divisions all take time. If the internal affairs of the tribe can be done well before the northern expedition, it will be much easier during the northern expedition. The most important thing is that the radio tackling team led by Jetty Roy has now achieved certain results, but it also takes time to truly apply radio. The importance of communication is undoubtedly important. especially once the tribes lay down those tribes in the north, thereby building an extremely vast empire. Then an extremely effective and extremely fast communication method is needed to manage this huge territory. Now the tribe has controlled half of the territory of the entire New World of North America. The narrow and long area on the west coast and the frigid regions of northern Canada in later generations are like a tasteless existence for stone bears. It will not be too late to fight after the empire is established. Therefore, how to better stabilize such a large territory has become the most important thing. In combination with the joint meeting of several leaders, Shi Xiong also wanted to wait for everything to be done before proceeding with the northern expedition. Chapter 516, Fusion. Once the decision to suspend the northern expedition to fully develop internal affairs was issued, the center of gravity of the entire Cherokee clan began to change. In the past 4 or 5 years, the Grim Bear Army fought the West, and laid a huge territory. Except for the Cree and the Pointons who were the first to be smashed, there was no time for the vast area west of the Mississippi. Full integration and integration. At that time, the tribe didn't have the energy to integrate these smashed territories. All the forces of the tribe were supporting the military operations of the Grizzlies. Those smashed territories were only suppressed locally by the power of the mixed division. Of course, Karaklilu's people have also done a lot of work, but if there is no suppression by the editor, it is estimated that those territories would have been messed up long ago. Since the northern expedition is not decided now, everything is easy to say. After all, after the Cherokee has merged with the Cree and the Powhatan, the population has exceeded 200,000, plus the submissive Pueblo, Navajo and Choctaws in the south. The Cherokee's rear is actually relatively stable. Now the main force of the tribe is how to get the Sioux League and the Cheyenne people to integrate as soon as possible. For this kind of work, Joe La Cruz is already familiar with it. Over the years, he has been following the violent Bear Army to gather the conquered tribes. How to make these conquered tribes merge in as soon as possible. Joe Laklelu and his group of men have already developed special routines. In fact, it is not a difficult task to integrate the tribes that have been conquered, as long as you do a few things to speed up the process. The first thing to do is to let these conquered tribes feel the strength of the Cherokee. Of course, this kind of strength is not just about force, but must be displayed in all directions. In terms of force, the Grim Bear Army has fully demonstrated at the forefront, and the tribes that have been conquered have nothing to say. If the Cherokee did not have strong force, those sturdy tribes would not be conquered. The other aspect is to make the tribesmen who have been conquered feel that as long as they merge into the Cherokee, their living standards will immediately have a qualitative improvement. Food, drinks, various delicacies, cigarettes, horses, etc., all need to be displayed. The North American Indians of this era were not as delicate as the Indians of later generations. The Americans of later generations showed that they did not have racial discrimination, but they promised the Indians many benefits. In many cases, the American government promised the Indians. Even the Americans are jealous. For example, a casino, except for a few states and later generations of the United States, most states banned gambling. But Indians were not included. Indians can freely open casinos in most states. In addition, Indians have many privileges, the kind of privilege that makes many Americans jealous. There is no way, who can let the Indian talents be the aboriginals of the United States, who will let the American government show that it is not racially discriminatory. But even so, those Indians are still not satisfied, and some weird Indian tribes even demand their own efforts. Therefore, the Indians of later generations have changed their tastes, and they have become very difficult to serve. But now, these rumorous Indians are still very foolish. For example, food. The vast majority of North American Indians in this era are not so comfortable in their small lives, and filling their stomachs is a very luxurious thing for the vast majority of North American Indians. If these Indians who depend on the sky for food can live the day that they can eat all day long, it will undoubtedly be a paradise life for them. In terms of food, the Cherokees are fine. Therefore, for those tribes who were conquered, The continuous supply of food provided by the Cherokee was enough to impress them. There are also those delicacies. For Indians who usually only boil meat or barbecue in white water, a beef stew with potatoes can make them want to eat their tongues in their belly. There is also that delicious drink, which is the favorite of those Indian guys. And a cigarette after a meal, overcoming the living gods, is also vividly reflected in these Indians. As for the war horses that were not needed before, that is not a big problem. Do you want to have such a good life? Honestly blend in. As long as you blend in, then you can live like this. People are not for themselves. Although there is no such a sentence among the North American Indian tribes, they still understand the same truth. Who doesn't want to live a good life? Who doesn't want to have a full stomach without risking a dangerous out hunting? Who doesn't want to live the small life of drinking wine, eating vegetables, bragging and smoking? Therefore, as long as Joe Locriulu and the others free their hands, even the most tempered Sioux and Cheyenne, they have to honestly lower their arrogant heads. Since the decision to stop the Northern expedition for the time being, in just 1 year, the original sturdy Sioux and Cheyenne people disappeared. Instead, they were scattered and planted in various places like other tribes, those who were used to living a good life tribe. While Locriulu was busy integrating these tribes, education was also forcibly promoted everywhere. Under the strong order of Shi Xiong, no matter where it is, as long as it is a tribe living under the jurisdiction of the Cherokee tribe, regardless of size, the pinyin annotations will be forcibly promoted. You can keep your native language www.wuxiaspet.com, but you must learn Cherokee based on pinyin annotations. At the same time, anyone under the age of 20 must learn pinyin annotations. People over 20 years old do not need to master pinyin annotations, but they must learn Cherokee based on pinyin annotations. Cherokee has been designated as the official language by Shi Xiong, and the pinyin annotation is the official language. Who would dare to stop the promotion of education? If you didn't say anything, they would go to the mine to start mining. No matter if you are a tribal chief or a tribal chief, if you dare to block education promotion, there is only one way to go. As for violent resistance, it is purely tired of living. Haven't you seen all the grim bear soldiers who have not had a battle to fight for more than a year, all their eyes flushed? Under such powerful means, many conquered tribes were scattered and arranged to live in different areas, and at the same time received the promotion of education. Maybe these people didn't adapt to it at first, and even this generation didn't adapt, but what Shi Xiong wanted was the adaptation of the next generation and those people who were born one after another. Adequate supply plus breakup and integration plus forced promotion of education is undoubtedly a good way for the complete integration of many tribes. Only in this way can a true and unified nation be formed. Once the Cherokee tribe finishes these tasks, there will be no more names for this tribe or tribe in the territory controlled by the Cherokee tribe. People living in this vast territory will have only one name, Cherokees. Chapter 517. Perplexed, Grandpa Sisasek, look what I brought you. It's a delicious sweet cake. In a gathering place about 5 kilometers away from Shangjin, an age of about the 12 or 13-year-old boy happily ran over and said to an elderly man who seemed to be quite old. The young man took out from his arms a piece about the size of 2 adult fists, wrapped in some reed leaves, and held it in front of the old man named Sisasek like a treasure. The old man took the things sent by the boy, and carefully opened the reed leaf, revealing the white rice ball inside, which was still steaming, with a kind smile on his face. Little black cow, Grandpa Chesikek, thank you for the sweet cake, but Grandpa is not hungry now. Is this delicious sweet cake still eaten by little black cow for Grandpa? Grandpa, Sisasek, don't fool me. I am not the kid I was 5 years ago. I am 12 years old this year, and I have grown up. The boy was obviously not satisfied with the old man's words. His face there was an unhappy look on it. Grandpa, Sisasek, this is how my brother and I captured a wild buffalo outside and exchanged it with the 2 horns of the wild buffalo. I knew you were hungry, so I brought it here for you. So hurry up, eat it. Good boy, good boy. The old man was a little touched, The wrinkles on his face piled up again, and the look in the boy's eyes became more kind. However, the old man hesitated for a while before he said, "Little black cow, Grandpa is really not hungry. I just have to eat some. Can you eat the rest? Let's divide this delicious sweet cake." This sweet cake is obviously also very attractive to the teenager, so the teenager involuntarily licked his lips. After thinking about it, he nodded and agreed. But even so, the boy still divided the sweet cake into two halves, one big and one small, and gave the big one to the old man, but the old man resolutely changed it. Sweet cakes taste very good, sweet and fragrant, even at the age of an elderly person. I have never eaten such a delicious food in the previous decades of my career, but after migrating here, he finally tasted this white sweet food. The taste is really memorable for a lifetime. Although the old man liked this sweet cake very much, he still stopped after only 2 sips, just chewed the sweet cake carefully in his mouth, and looked at the gobbled boy in front of him with a kind smile. The boy in front of him is called Zhao Hainaiu. He has an older brother and an older sister. His brother is called Da Hainaiu, and his sister is Sunflower. As for the young man's father, his name is Hainaiu. The young man's grandfather is called Lao Hainaiu, and all the men in this family are called Hainaiu. The Black Bull was once the most brave warrior in the tribe, but when fighting with the Cherokee, the Black Bull who was qualified to fight on one of the only dozen horses in the tribe was defeated by the Cherokee weapons. He took a foot and was finally captured by the Cherokee. That battle also became the last battle of Black Bull's life. No matter how brave a lame warrior is, he cannot go on the battlefield again. Chesapeake sighed secretly, looking at this huge gathering place. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. The Chesapeake tribe is called the Wild Buffalo Tribe. Before the Cherokee attacked the tribe 5 years ago, the Wild Buffalo Tribe was still a member of the Cheyenne tribe's most powerful dog soldiers and the entire Cheyenne tribe, a tribe that many tribes under its jurisdiction admire. Before the Cherokee attacked, the Cheyenne could be said to be the most powerful tribe in that area, even facing the Crook, the Sioux and the Kiowa at the same time. The brave Cheyenne never flinched. This Cheyenne tribe with 10 large tribes and hundreds of small tribes is an extremely powerful tribe. The tribe's military is governed by a council composed of 44 tribal leaders and 7 military clubs. Among the clubs, the most powerful and brave military club is called the Gbing Club. The Wild Buffalo Tribe where Chesapeake is located is a powerful tribe in the doghouse. Before the Cherokee attacked, whenever the Sioux, Crooks, or Kiowas attacked, the soldiers of the Dog Club would always charge at the forefront, and they would use the most ferocious stance to confront the enemy, and in the end, the enemy was completely defeated. As a tribe in the Dog Army, the Wild Buffalo Tribe has its own pride. And Chesapeake is a sacrifice in the Wild Buffalo Tribe, a sacrifice that is revered by everyone in the entire tribe. The powerful Wild Buffalo Tribe rules more than a dozen small tribes around it, and is the most powerful tribe in that area. But, this sturdy tribe with a proud history is like a chicken shingle in front of the mighty weapons in the hands of the Cherokees. Whenever dreaming of the battle on that day, the Chesapeake priest would always be awakened in the dream. When the Cherokee army came, the hundreds of sturdy fighters of the mighty Wild Buffalo Tribe and the soldiers of the other dog soldiers were still charging as they used to fight against the Sioux, Crooks, and Kiowas. At the forefront, after decades of reproduction, the war horses obtained from the French have given the entire tribe thousands of war horses. In the past, whenever the Sioux, Crooks, or Kiowas invaded, the mighty cavalry of the dog soldiers would always use the most courageous charge to break down the enemy's formation at the forefront. Therefore, when the mighty cavalry of the Dog Club charged again, even Chesapeake thought that the Cherokee would definitely fail. But the result is so shocking and helpless. The powerful cavalrymen of the dog soldiers didn't even complete the first charge, and they turned into fly ash in the sky full of explosions. The only dozen cavalrymen who were lucky enough not to be killed were all covered in wounds. www.wuxiasput.com Black Bull, the most ferocious warrior in the tribe, had his left leg cut off from the ankle down without knowing what it was. The Cheyenne, who had been invincible, failed so vaguely. Then, the tribe was divided into dozens of parts, and they didn't know where they were sent by the Cherokee. The wild buffalo tribe and several other small tribes were sent here, to this flatter and wider grassland. In the distance is that huge city that looks like a miracle, a small tribe sent by the tribe. Kiowa, Sioux, Arapaho, Fox, and even the distant Comanche, Choctaw, Pueblo can be seen here. Shi Xiong knew that this was a gathering place for a hodgepodge, and people who had been sent from various tribes lived here. Originally, Shi Xiong had no confidence in the future, but 5 years later, the little black bull, who was only 6 or 7 years old, has grown into a strong teenager, but Shi Xiong has become more and more concerned about the life here, the more confused. This is definitely not a good place, but life is very good. There is no worries about eating or drinking. The people here only need to work hard to get inexhaustible food, delicious drinks and more food that you would never even think of before. Although 5 years is not long, why do people who were once mortal enemies live together so harmoniously here? Shi Xiong is really confused. Chapter 518, Sentiment. What Shi Xiong was puzzled was that the people from all tribes who lived here were defeated by the Cherokees. Ordinarily, they should regard the Cherokees as enemies. They, including all the members of the wild buffalo tribe, should unite to kill the Cherokee fighters who are stationed outside, and then go to Beijing to attack them. After all, there are more than 10,000 people living here. Although there are not many strong fighters, if these people can really unite, at least kill the Cherokees who also live here, and then kill those who are stationed outside. Those Cherokee fighters are fine. After all, the Cherokee people living here only have a tribe of more than 1,000 people, and there are not many strong warriors in this tribe. It is said that the strong fighters of this tribe have all joined the Grim Bear Army, the terrifying army that defeated the brave Cheyenne. The army stationed outside seems to be just a battalion of the Grim Bear Army. But why can't these people unite? Shi Xiong thinks he is very wise, and his life of nearly 60 years has made him see too much. But even if he has lived here for 5 years, he just doesn't understand why these Cherokee enemies here don't have the courage to resist. Well, including myself is the same. Could it be the Cherokees' food, wine, and all kinds of wonderful things that made these people less aggressive? Should be like this. Shi Xiong's hand trembled a little and took out a box of cigarettes from his pocket. It is said that this kind of cigarettes wrapped in cardboard are very high-end goods, and only people with status can smoke this kind of cigarettes. Ordinary people can only smoke cigarettes in bulk. A kind of cigarettes that can be placed in a paper tube and a barrel can hold 120 cigarettes. Seeing Grandpa Shi Xiong took out a high-end cigarette, Little Black Bull's eyes suddenly lit up. Grandpa, Shi Xiong, give me one too. This kind of cigarette can only be distributed by tribal priests or tribal leaders like you. We can only smoke the loose cigarettes. The taste of the cigarettes is indeed not as good as that. This kind of cigarette in your hand is so good. Looking at the black cow looking expectant, Shi Xiong smiled and took 2 cigarettes from the cigarette case. One was handed to the little black cow, and the other was caught by himself. The little black cow happily took the cigarette and held it in his mouth, then neatly took out the fire folder, unscrewed the lid and blew it vigorously. After the fire folder emitted a puff of black smoke, the flame came out. Shi Xiong looked at the huaz in the little black bull's hand and couldn't help sighing. This huaz, who could make himself angry, seemed to make him understand something. Such a small fire book, if it were before, it would have been something that I would not even dare to think about. This kind of thing that can make fire by itself is simply too convenient. With this kind of thing, the tribe will never have to spend all their lives. The fire is saved. Alas, it's said that this thing was also made by the legendary Son of God. Could it be that the tall Cherokee chief is really a child of the god? How else could he make it, such a magical thing? If this is true, then, Shi Xiong thought silently, and shook his head involuntarily. Dahainaiu first lit Xiong's cigarette, then lit himself, then covered the fire fold, and then took a puff of cigarette. The North American Indians of this era do not have any regulations that children are not allowed to smoke. Here, in this era, almost all North American Indians, men, Women, old and children can smoke. They used to smoke pipes, but they have now been replaced by pipes, more convenient and better tasting cigarettes. Just after smoking 2 cigarettes, the little black cow stood up excitedly. Chesuke looked back and found that the limping black cow and the cow came over. Looking at the strange thing on the black cow's left foot, Chesuke sighed helplessly again. Everyone thought that the black cow without one foot could no longer stand up, but no one thought that when the Cherokee rescued the black cow and waited for the black cow to fully heal the wound on his left foot, he would give it to him. Took such a strange thing. This kind of thing looks like a foot, fake, but it can be put on the calf. After tightening, the black cow can stand up again. Although he was still limping while walking, and this kind of thing could not be worn for a long time, after all, it could make Black Bull, the tribe's most brave warrior, stand up again. It is said that this kind of thing called prosthetic limb was also invented by the magical chieftain of the Son of God. Looking at the Black Bull who is limping while walking but with a smile on his face getting closer and closer, Chesuke seems to understand something. Black Bull had a foot cut off when he fought against the Cherokee. If the tribal warriors encountered this kind of injury in the past, it is unknown whether they can survive or not, and they can only pray for the favor of the gods. But the black cow was quickly rescued by the Cherokee through something called surgery. Well, it is said that the thing called surgery was also invented by the chief of the Son of God. After the Cherokee learned that the black cow was once an extremely brave warrior, and was very good at fighting on horseback, they sent away the black cow that had been wounded and put on prosthetic limbs. The Cherokee asked the Black Bull to teach their warriors how to fight on horseback. Sisasek knew that at first, the Black Bull firmly disagreed, but the Cherokee people sent a large amount of grain, squeeze oil, cigarettes, etc. to the Black Bull family, good things, even gave the Black Bull an excellent war horse. Hainayu has a big family. www.wuxiaspa.com. He has a father on top and 3 children below. If there is not enough food, the family will starve to death. When the black cow was healthy, there was no shortage of food in his family, but now, the black cow without one foot can't even go out hunting. Under such circumstances, how could Black Bull not lower his always proud head? Chesuke knew very well how much the Black Bull hated the Cherokees at first, and he wanted to kill all the Cherokees. But after the past 5 years, Black Bull's hatred of the Cherokees has completely disappeared. It is said that he is very popular and even admired by the young fighters in the Cherokee army, and he has also personally taught many outstanding Cherokee fighters. And the black cow gets paid not only for the unfinished food and delicacies, but it is said that his eldest son, Da Hainayu, will also be selected as the mixed division of the Grim Bear Army this year. Once Da Hainayu really becomes a Grim Bear soldier, even if it is a mixed division warrior, then the life of the Black Naiu family will be better. And it is said that the only daughter of Black Bull, Xiang Yang Cow, is also preparing to combine with the Cherokee youth. The situation like the Black Bull is quite a few in this gathering place of more than 10,000 people. Now almost every family with young people is looking forward to their children being able to join the Grim Bear Army, because that will make the family life is better. Chesuke sighed slightly again. Among the 3 brilliant smiles of his father, Hainayu, he seemed to understand a little more. Chapter 519. 3 points. Sisasek's thoughts and perceptions are naturally unknown to others, but in the same way, many similar situations that have occurred in other places or even in this gathering place are also unknown to Sisasek. In fact, after the decision to suspend the northern expedition and the entire Cherokee family began to develop their internal affairs, in the past 4 years, what happened to the Black Bull family was in the entire territory controlled by the Cherokee family. Nina is really countless. The so-called development of internal affairs includes many aspects: basic people's livelihood, food, education, transportation, etc., all belong to the category of internal affairs. But for the Cherokee tribe, in addition to those aspects, there is one more important thing, and that is how to integrate the tribes that have been conquered as quickly as possible. Regarding this point, Shi Xiong combined his later generations and the history he knew, and summed up a few key points. That is naturally to make those people full. The sky and the earth are big and the belly is the biggest. Whether it is the Indians of the New World of North America, the European countries, or the long history of East Asia, eating a full stomach is always the first thing for everyone. For this, the Cherokee people who already have enough food reserves are naturally doing well, and while giving food to these conquered tribesmen, the Cherokee tribes also taught these people how to survive on their own and have enough food and clothing. For those tribesmen who have been conquered, tame bison is not so difficult, and the output of new farm tools is high enough whether it is the Qingshan base or Shangjing base. Therefore, the use of tamed bison to achieve more advanced farming methods, and it's not such a difficult thing. Even if some people don't there still be Cherokee? The Cherokee tribe, which has already completely integrated the Cree and Powhatan people, has a population of more than 200,000. These people have also been broken up and scattered to various gathering places with the mixing division. The conquering Indians made the best example. The North American continent is very fertile, and the arable area is also the world's largest. Otherwise the next generation of the United States will not become the world's second largest grain-producing country. As long as these people are not too lazy to grow maggots in the ditch, then after adopting the new farming method, 1 year is enough for them to be self-sufficient. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, in later generations, a normal person needs 5 levels of needs, namely, physiological needs, safety needs, social needs, respect needs, and self-realization needs. And if these conquered Indians saw their hard work turned into heavy food, then this not only met their first needs, but also met their 5th need, which is self-actualization. Demand. Isn't that the case? Sufficient food meets their most basic physiological needs, a full stomach, and to achieve all of this is done by themselves, which of course also meets their needs for self-realization. Although the 5th level is not so obvious, the heavy grain can definitely satisfy some of their inner needs. As long as they have a full stomach, and let them see that only by integrating into the Cherokee as soon as possible, they can have a full stomach and be self-sufficient with more advanced farming methods. This is the most basic condition for integration. Secondly, on the basis that these conquered Indians have a full stomach, they have the opportunity to enjoy some more high-end enjoyment, such as spirits and more delicious dishes, such as living in a more sturdy and warmer house, such as smoking it tastes better while carrying more aspects of cigarettes, such as letting them use firefold. This is absolutely necessary. There is an old Chinese saying that goes well, thinking about it when you're full. In fact, Indians in North America, including Europeans and Africans, are like this. After eating and drinking enough, it is time to enjoy it. This is absolutely beyond doubt. Although is also a good enjoyment, it is not good to have all day long, so they have to be exposed to some more advanced enjoyments. But this kind of enjoyment is not given to you in vain like food. You have to make a certain contribution to be able to enjoy those advanced enjoyments. Is like a black bull. Although this guy had resisted the grizzly bear army and had his left foot cut off by shrapnel in the battle, the skill of this guy on horseback was really amazing. Therefore, talents like him will be fitted with prosthetic limbs, and then they will be invited into the mixed division of the grizzly army to teach those recruits how to fight immediately. Because Hainaiu has made contributions, he will get the advanced enjoyment he deserves. And there are many people like Hainaiu, of course. These people are not necessarily as proficient in instant kung fu as the black cows. They may be proficient in farming or other things, but as long as they have the ability, they will definitely be reused. As long as they are reused by the Cherokee, then they will get a higher level of enjoyment than others. They will be envied by others, and this will also satisfy their inner vanity. And this can also artificially create a class hierarchy. These capable people set an example, and those who are not capable naturally want to catch up. Well, you also want to have this kind of enjoyment, so hurry up and use your best efforts to integrate into our Cherokee clan. The third point is education. The so-called education is not only the promotion of pinyin annotation www.wuxiaspa.com, and it is not only for the conquered Indians to learn Cherokee, but more importantly, It is promoted among these people under the age of 20. At the same time of education, those teachers will strictly follow the textbooks given by Shi Xiong to brainwash the young Indians. Young people are receptive and easy to be fooled. This has been proved by countless young people in later generations. Therefore, quietly brainwashing these young Indians and instilling the benefits of tribal integration. When these young people grow up and become the pillars of their respective tribes, they will easily lead their tribes or influence their surroundings. People accelerate integration. Of course, while brainwashing these young people, Shi Xiong will also give them a better opportunity to perform, that is, allowing qualified young people to join the Grim Bear Army Mixed Division. As long as they join the editor, they will naturally get a lot of advanced enjoyment. Just like Hainaiu's eldest son, Da Hainaiu, this 17-year-old young man, after undergoing brainwashing for nearly 5 years, is now proud of joining the editor. When the military commander of a battalion of the Grim Bear Army stationed outside the gathering place agreed, the Big Black Bull successfully became a soldier of the Grim Bear Army. Even if it is a recruit, the number of people affected by the cow is many, many. And the things that Da Hainaiu enjoyed after becoming a soldier of the Grim Bear Army stimulated other young people and made more young people proud of joining the Grim Bear Army. These are the 3 main points that Shi Xiong summed up. For more than 4 years, he has been asking his subordinates to implement these methods. Obviously, the effect is pretty good. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520, Would Rather Go To Than Enter the Mine. Carrots and sticks have always been considered an extremely crude but extremely effective management method. Regardless of ancient and modern times, as a superior person, how to manage one's territory, nation, and country has always been a difficult problem. There are too many management skills and art involved. But any aspiring upper-level person will never refuse to use the carrot and stick management method. Because this method does not seem to have any management art, and it is simple and rude, but any upper person knows that the simpler and rude management method can play an incredible role in many cases. Shi Xiong is now a great chief who manages more than 4 million square kilometers and a population of more than 1.5 million. Although he was an out-and-out little in his previous life, he had never supervised people at all, and had no experience in how to manage it. But in this life, he was roughly pushed to this position by fate, so he had to try to manage such a huge tribe with a state of awe. He tried many management methods, but he finally found helplessly that the best way to use it was carrots and sticks. Especially in the process of integrating the conquered Indian tribes into the Cherokee tribe, this simple and crude method is the most effective. For the vast majority of the conquered Indians, the stone bear gave them carrots as much as possible, because the stone bear knew that sooner or later these conquered Indians would become their own people, and they would become a part of this tribe. Since this is the case, let them feel the benefits of the tribe as much as possible, and let them recognize the Cherokee as much as possible. Therefore, Shi Xiong used a variety of methods to induce these conquered natives, and the methods can be described as ubiquitous. But unfortunately, among these conquered native Indians, there will always be a small group of people who do not recognize the stone bears, the Cherokee tribe, and the fact that they have been conquered. These guys with all kinds of thoughts are like rat shit, they never have any positive effects, and some are just endless negative effects. For such people, Shi Xiong wanted to wake them up with a gentle policy at the beginning. After all, most people who have this kind of thinking are people with status and status in the previous tribes. But facts have proved that for some things, it is not enough to just use the soft policy. Because you are good to them, they think you are weak and think that you can't do things without them, which will breed them even more different minds. Even in the year when the tribal integration just started, dozens of uprisings broke out in many gathering places within the year. Some fighters of the Grim Bear Army did not die on the battlefield, but were killed by these white-eyed wolves. From then on, Shi Xiong realized that he couldn't just be gentle. A true conqueror, which hands are not covered with blood, the throne under his has always been made of tired bones. So, Shi Xiong started to use his hands to drop a big stick. After Shi Xiong killed hundreds of thoughtful guys in a row, this kind of iron-handed method really made many people not dare to have any more messy thoughts. Didn't you think of anything else? Don't you want a better life? Well, it's okay to want a better life, just follow Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu promises that your little life will get better and better. But if you are not satisfied, don't blame Lao Tzu for being cruel. When hundreds of heads were put on sharp wooden sticks and gradually dried, when thousands of rebellious guys were sent into various mines, the conquered Native American Indians were finally completely stabilized. Those guys who were killed are better off. After all, they don't know when their heads are cut off, but the guys who tried to help the abuser and were caught and sent to the mines everywhere were really worse than dead. Especially after Shi Xiong deliberately releases some of the lesser crime guys from the mine every once in a while. The horror about the mine makes those guys who have different minds dare not move. With the continuous expansion of the Cherokee clan, as the number of alchemists headed by the 18 Arhats has increased over the years, Hank, Felisa and even Colonel Jones have been trafficking in from Europe to the Stone Bears. All kinds of alchemists. Shi Xiong gave them gold. Therefore, the number of alchemists of the Cherokee tribe is increasing. In the past few years, there have been hundreds of alchemists. The energy that these alchemists exploded is very scary, so the demand for mineral resources is increasing. The mineral resources found near Dikingshan are far from the current demand. Therefore, the Cherokee began to search for and excavate various mineral resources in the territory under their control. This is the origin of the major Cherokee mines. Without any machinery, people are the main force of mining. In the beginning, Shi Xiong used tribal people to mine, but as the big stick in his hand fell fiercely, more and more thoughtful guys were sent into the mine. Don't you think about those messy things all day? Well, from now on you don't have to think about anything, just mine for lazy. And those Cherokee people who took the initiative to mine www.wuxiaspa.com have also become mine managers. There are heavy guards around the mine. Go in and figure it out. Unless you grow wings on your body or you learn how to escape, it is absolutely impossible for you to figure it out. Even if you can escape from the mine, most of the mines are in unpopulated areas. Even if you run out, you can't get out of the wasteland infested by wild beasts with 2 legs. Each mine is actually a huge prison. Although the mines are full, there are endless heavy manual labor, which is not something ordinary people can bear. There is no freedom, except for being able to eat enough. He spends all his time digging in a dark mine. Over time, that kind of taste can definitely make people desperate. And Shi Xiong would release some good guys from the mine every once in a while, so the horror of the mine spread through the mouth of these people to all the gathering places of the entire tribe. And those conquered aboriginals saw a strong man like a bison, who had become skinny after being sent to the mine for less than half a year, and their lifeless eyes, they immediately understood what kind of place the mine is. Although it's full there, it's out of nowhere. No, it's even scarier than hell. So it didn't take long for the conquered Indians to circulate in the gathering places I would rather go to than mine. Chapter 521, Quality Improvement. To win over most people, suppress a small number of people. Carrots and sticks, plus the resolute implementation of the 3 key points. This is what Shi Xiong has focused on in the past 4 years. By doing so, the effect is obviously beyond Shi Xiong's expectations. Originally, Shi Xiong thought that it would take 5, 6, 7 or 8 years to completely integrate these conquered tribes, but now only 4 years have passed, and the integration situation is unexpectedly good. Actually, it will be relieved if you think about it. After all, the North American Indians of this era are a group of uncivilized aboriginals. I can't say that they are as ignorant as the primitive people, but they are definitely not much better than those black brothers and sisters in Africa. Primitive ignorance and backwardness mean that it is easy to be fooled. In his last life, Shi Xiong remembered that when he was in middle school, that is, in the mid-1990s, the kind of spoofing that came in from abroad was not uncommon. At that time, Why was collocation so popular in China? Why can so many people do such illegal things? In fact, it was very simple. It was because the Chinese people at that time had little knowledge and had no resistance to such foreign things, so one fudge was accurate. But when the stone bare soul was worn, not many people would be fooled by collaborating this thing. This is because with the advent of the information explosion era, the people of China have more and more knowledge and understanding, so this thing can't fool people anymore. And the North American Indians of this era are even better than the Chinese people in the previous life. Let them eat and drink, and then give them some high-end enjoyment like cigarettes and liquor, and they can immediately make them think that the gods have come. Together with the implementation of several other methods, this sea, land and air trinity flicker directly made these Indians foolish. From the spring of 1771 to the spring of 1775, the integration of these Indian tribes in the territory controlled by the Cherokee absolutely exceeded 95%, or even higher. Now distributed in more than 200 large-scale gathering areas of more than 4 million square kilometers, the various tribes get along very well with each other. It can't be said that they are the same as a family, but the previous situation of hatred and alienation has been completely eliminated. Especially the closer the area to Shangjin, the higher the degree of integration. Like this large gathering place where the Cheksk and the Black Bull family live, all tribes living in it now regard themselves as Cherokees. Well, maybe there are some people with ulterior motives in it, but they had better keep their careful thoughts deep in their hearts, otherwise once a little is revealed, then the ubiquitous secrets will immediately report the situation. Then the tribal minds will inevitably have more mining. These so-called secret agents are actually the Indians of various tribes who were conquered. Because Shi Xiong has clearly announced that who can provide information that someone wants to rebel, then he will be given a big reward. Instead of letting the Grim Bear Army monitor these people, the effect is definitely not as good as using them to monitor their own people. A very simple way is to use people's instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, and use heavy rewards and heavy punishments to tell these people that as long as you contribute to the tribe, you will get heavy rewards, and if you betray the tribe, you will inevitably get a heavy penalty. Being sent to the mine is only the lowest level of punishment. Serious. Just look at the skulls that have been dried on the sticks! It is human instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. No one wants to be sent into the mine, let alone become a dried skull. Therefore, monitoring others quickly became the norm. Of course, this method will not last long, because Shi Xiong will transfer some of the clansmen between these gathering places to other gathering places at regular intervals, and then transfer the clansmen from other gathering places here. Constant flow can avoid the hatred formed by mutual surveillance. Only by constantly letting people flow, can the integration be accelerated faster. Of course, during these 4 years, various other matters of the Cherokee have also progressed extremely smoothly. First of all, grain reserves reached a new peak in the fall of last year. As people of all tribes are using new farming tools and new farming methods, the Cherokee's food production is increasing. Even if there is no chemical fertilizer in this era, the grain yield per mu is far less than that of later generations, but the land controlled by the Cherokee is mostly very fertile land, and the population controlled by the Cherokee is only over 1.5 million. With such a huge area of arable land and such a small number of people, the annual harvest of food is naturally endless. Therefore, in Monongahela, in the original site of the Gaoshu tribe, near Shangjin, in the southwest, northwest, southeast and other important towns, and in the Norfolk port and other places, the large granaries built are full of grain. It is not an exaggeration to say that just the grain accumulated in these granaries is enough for the more than 1.5 million people controlled by the Cherokee tribe to eat for 2 years for nothing. Sufficient food is the foundation of the foundation. With sufficient food, other human resources can be fully guaranteed. Whether it is the source of the Grim Bear Army or the workers needed by other industries, the Cherokee has never lacked. With more and more alchemists coming from Europe, other industries of the entire Cherokee have also been greatly developed. Transportation, construction and other basic livelihood industries have been greatly developed, and industries such as industry and military industry have also made leap-forward progress. In 4 years, enough 76mm guns in the Grizzly Army have been used in a wide range of applications. Now those military lunatics are even trying to develop 105mm caliber artillery. The mechanical manufacturing team headed by Jack Williams www.wuxiaspot.com has successfully applied the improved steam engine to many aspects, and even began to gradually replace water power. The basic materials team headed by David Adian has also made great progress in the research and development of steel and various alloy steels. The 105mm artillery that is being developed by the military has been implemented thanks to advances in basic materials. The People's Livelihood Materials team headed by Bill Gates has also greatly improved its application technology in various livelihood industries such as cement, paper, road construction, and construction. The medical team headed by Gene August has also made great improvements in vaccination, surgery, and field medical treatment. Even under the guidance of Shi Xiong, August's team is trying to cultivate penicillin. And under the leadership of Jetty Roy, things and electromagnetic communications are also progressing gratifyingly. The tribe now has a radio communication method with a communication distance of up to 200 kilometers. Now Jetty Roy and the others are developing a radio with a longer communication distance. In Norfolk on the far west coast of the Atlantic Ocean, a port city including a shipyard has begun to take shape. It has long been positioned by Stone Bear as the tribal's main port and shipyard in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, as many as 30,000 people live here. In addition, the 4th Division, the main force of the Grim Bear Army, is also stationed here. In general, the strength of the entire tribe has been qualitatively improved in the past 4 years. Now that everything is ready, Stone Bear waits for the sound of Lexington's gun, and then expands to the Great Northern Lakes region. The Northern Expedition of the Tribe. Chapter 522, Colonial Situation, Part 1. Since the decision to suspend the Northern Expedition in 1771, the Cherokee people have begun to fully develop their internal affairs, but this does not mean that the Stone Bears are not paying attention to the movements of the Americans, British and French in the Northeast. Compared with the Americans and the British, the French have become more and more silent in recent years. Moreover, in the original historical time and space, during this period of time, the French did nothing in the New World of North America. So Shi Xiong was only concerned about the French. The French nowadays are nothing to the Stone Bears, even if the French, out of revenge for the Cherokees' occupation of the Mississippi, once sent a fleet to bomb the Norfolk port, but was the 4th Division stationed in the Norfolk port sank 2 Tier 3 sailing battleships with shore-based 76mm mortars and fled in fright. But that attack also completely exposed the news that the Cherokee had an artillery with an effective range of more than 2 kilometers, which immediately aroused the coveting of several major military powers in Europe. After all, in this era, an artillery that can easily sink a sailing battleship 2 kilometers away is really jealous. For this reason, the British entrusted Colonel James Jones, who had returned to China, to lobby for the artillery production technology. After being completely rejected by Stone Bear, they sent Patrick Ferguson again. Of course, as the hardcore brother of Stone Bear, as a true British gentleman, Ferguson, who has been promoted to major after seeing Stone Bear, did not mention it at all. After a few days of delicious food and drink, he took the inland river armed. The transport ship went upstream along the Ohio River and returned to the British colony. And the Spaniard shot Lieutenant Colonel Fernando Feliza, also trying to exchange this weapon at a high price. For the Spaniards, the bullet-throwing technique previously traded from Shikama is really something they can't put down. Although this weapon has a limited range, it is far more powerful than the shipborne artillery they use now. The Spaniards did not expect that a native of the New World in North America would be able to develop artillery with a longer range and greater power. Feliza's request was also rejected. Other weapons can be exchanged, but the mortar technology Shi Xiong will never take it out, at least in his lifetime. Shi Xiong did not intend to replace the technology of mortars, cannons and howitzers with longer range and more powerful cannons. The Prussians are also here, and the Austrians are also here. Anyway, the European powers who got the news sent people to lobby. Well, some countries are not here to lobby, but to threaten. For example, the Austrian. Although the Austrians at this time are not as powerful as the Habsburg Empire, they are also a prominent military power in Europe. So when the proud Austrian envoy came to the Stone Bear and wanted to threaten the Stone Bear, he was directly chopped off by the Stone Bear. Shi Xiong's toughness also made European countries helpless. Everyone now knows that an extremely powerful Indian tribe has appeared in the New World of North America, and this tribe has built a huge territory in just a few years, and the number of people controlled by it is as many as 1.5 million. The most important thing is that this powerful Indian tribe also has an extremely powerful army. Even the most powerful British in North America dare not easily offend this tribe. Shi Xiong has begun to show his sturdiness in front of European powers. The French were so ashamed that they didn't dare to find fault, and the Austrian was helpless after facing his messenger being chopped off. Although they are strong in Europe, they are beyond their reach. They have nothing to do with the Stone Bears in the New World of North America. Not to mention the Spaniards, they have bullet-throwing skills, and they naturally know how powerful the artillery in Shi Xiong's hands is. It's just a fool to anger them. And the British, although they want to get this artillery technology, they really don't have this energy now. Now just the undercurrents lurking in the 13 colonies in North America have already caused the British to be devastated. Compared with that artillery technology, the importance of the 13 colonies in North America is obviously higher. After the Cherokee had built a huge territory, they went to lobby their original allies, the Shawnees, as a tribe that was originally extremely powerful, but now its strength has fallen a lot. The Shawnees are also extremely embarrassed when facing their allies, the Cherokee tribe. Fight, scared to death. They dare not do anything with the current Cherokee. They knew very well that the current Cherokee only needed to send 1,000 people to destroy them, but if they were to bow their heads to the Cherokee, they couldn't save the face. After all, more than 200 years ago, they were extremely powerful in the eyes of the Cherokee. However, the Shawnees' indecision did not dispel Stone Bear's idea of annexing this tribe. In the end, when Stone Bear dispatched the 1st Division to the area where the two races bordered and raised more than 100 hot air balloons, the Shawnees finally lowered their heads. Like the Pueblos and Choctaws, they eventually accepted the Cherokee reorganization. The Shawnee who was reorganized www.wuxiaspa.com became the eyes of Stone Bear in the 13 colonies of North America. Because the Shawnee's sphere of influence includes the major colonies in the Northeast, it is best to let them monitor the British. Through the Shawnee people, the news was passed back continuously, coupled with the historical situation that Shi Xiong already knew. This made Shi Xiong very clear that the British now have no time to take care of themselves. In fact, starting from 1765, the second year after the Stone Bear crossed, the situation of the British in the 13 colonies in North America began to become unsatisfactory. Although the 7 Years' War with the French ended in the British victory, the war consumed too much energy and strength of the British. Under such circumstances, the British promulgated the infamous encampment regulations in 1765. At the same time, they also promulgated the encampment regulations which were unbearable to Americans. These two regulations ostensibly were laws drawn up by the British to further squeeze the North American Indians, but the actual victims were the 2 million British colonists in the 13 colonies. Although these two successive regulations were apparently aimed at North American Indians, when these two regulations were promulgated, all British colonists in the North American colonies discovered that the original family members would be so cruel. Quite simply, according to the content of these two regulations, if the stamp duty regulations levied a high stamp duty on all printed materials in the North American colonies and met with all the colonial people's resistance, then the camping regulations simply robbed them. Chapter 523, Colonial Situation, Part 2. In order to transfer the huge amount of property lost in the 7 Years' War to the colonists in the North American colonies, the British authorities first promulgated the registration regulations and sent 10,000 soldiers to the 13 North American colonies under the pretext of targeting North American Indians. You said that these 10,000 soldiers are soldiers of your British Empire, and your British Empire should be responsible for the food, drink, and sleep of these 10,000 soldiers, right? No, the weird British Empire is not willing to spend even this little money. The garrison regulations they promulgated clearly stated that the 10,000 soldiers are here to protect you. So the houses, food and other living materials of the 10,000 soldiers must be settled locally. The regulations are simple, to put it bluntly, that is, after these 10,000 soldiers come to your North American colony, they can live in the homes of local residents, and the local residents also have to take care of eating and drinking. Don't care about it. You really think these 10,000 soldiers are muddled? So, the colonists of the 13th colony, especially those living near Boston, were miserable. They had a very tight life, and they had to provide accommodation and food and drink for these soldiers. But this is not the end. After these soldiers were stationed there, the British government promulgated the more notorious stamp duty regulations to further squeeze and exploit colonial colonists. This can be regarded as stabbing a hornet's nest. When these colonists in the colony saw it, the British government was not here to help them, it was simply trying to kill them. So, in 1765, actions against local tax collectors and tax bureaus quickly spread across the 13 colonies in North America. Although due to the resolute resistance of the colonists, the stamp duty ordinance was abolished within less than half a year after being implemented, but this also allowed the colonists of the North American colonies to completely open the prelude to the British authorities. The British government saw that the stamp duty ordinance could not be enforced. Where can I do it? Lao Tzu wants to break a penny and use it as 2 pennies. You are a group of poor people living so moisturized in the colony. This is not okay. You have to find a way to pay out of your pockets. So, those lofty politicians turned their minds, and they came up with another bill, the more wicked Townshend tax law. I want to say that Townshend is also a great figure in this era. He is the Minister of Finance of the British Empire, and he is in charge of the financial power of the entire British Empire. Under the encouragement of this guy, in the second half of 1767, the British Parliament passed 4 bills to tax the North American colonies in a row. These 4 bills stipulate that all paper, glass, lead, paint, tea and other materials exported from the United Kingdom to the colonies shall be subject to high import taxes. The history is called the Townshend Tax Act. As soon as the Townshend tax law was promulgated, the colonists in the North American colonies immediately exploded. Damn, I just abolished the stamp duty regulations that you stunned, and you made a Townshend tax law. What do you mean? Do you want Lao Tzu to live? I didn't say anything. Keep on doing it. Isn't it just daring? Ah. So, the colonists of the 13 colonies in North America once again united, and vigorously joined the British authorities. After more than half a year of resistance, the British authorities could not resist it, so they were forced to abolish the Townshend Tax Act again in March 1778. However, in order to show that Britain has the right to tax the colonies, it still retains the tea tax. The tea tax also became the fuse of the Boston Tea Incident in 1773. However, although the Stamp Duty Ordinance and Townshend Tax Act were successively abolished by the colonists through violent and uncooperative means, the notorious Registration Ordinance has never been abolished. The Red Shrimp soldiers dominate the colony and cause anger and resentment. The colonists in the colony have been fighting against these Red Shrimp soldiers, and their dissatisfaction is getting higher and higher. This kind of dissatisfaction is like a balloon that is constantly inflating. Then, after the balloon was continuously inflated for 5 years, it finally reached a critical point on March 5, 1770. The result was that the balloon banged. It exploded. On this day, the British soldiers stationed in Boston clashed with a local rope maker. As a result, all the rope workers in Boston united and confronted the Red Shrimp soldiers guarding Boston customs. In the panic, The red shrimp soldier did not control himself and fired. As a result, 3 people were killed on the spot, 6 people were injured, and 2 injured died of serious injuries and then died. 5 killed and 4 injured in a conflict. This is the famous Boston Massacre. The most important thing is that among the 5 dead, there is also a black leader who was born as a plantation slave. This time, the British soldier stabbed a hornet's nest. As news of this tragedy spread, the entire North American colony was boiling. When the British authorities saw that this was not possible, they had to arrest the culprit 8 British soldiers and 1 officer, and were charged with murder. Then there is a trial. It turned out to be dumbfounding. These British soldiers and the British officer were acquitted of the British soldier who shot and killed the British officer and the British officer under the defense lawyer's clever defense. What is even more speechless is that the lawyer who defended these British soldiers and the British officer was named John Adams. Well, it was the leader of the independence movement and the signer of the Declaration of Independence, who was respected by the Americans as one of the founding fathers, and later became the successor of the first U.S. President Washington. Although the Boston Massacre did not cause a greater conflict, it caused the colonists in the North American colonies to completely lose confidence in the British authorities. And at this time, the colonists of the North American colonies established a communications committee and began secretly fighting against the British authorities. Especially when the Boston Tea Incident broke out in 1773, it brought the relationship between the North American colonies and the British authorities into an invisible abyss. In order to show their strong attitude towards the tea pouring incident, the British authorities promulgated the Intolerable Intolerance Act in 1774, which directly led to the outbreak of the War of Independence the following year. These things, Shi Xiong had already known about these things in his previous life. Shi Xiong knew all kinds of events that happened in the past 10 years. It's just that he had known these things in history books before, but in this life, he got the definite news through the Shawnees and the Klansmen in the colony. And now, it is the spring of 1775. If history hasn't gone wrong, then after several years of tormenting wars, the relationship between the colonists in the North American colonies and the British authorities has deteriorated to the extreme. Then, on April 19th of this year, this string that has been tense for several years will be completely broken with the shot of Lexington. This is the best opportunity Shi Xiong has been waiting for. Chapter 524, Set Out. Budding month is what Indians call the 4th month of each year, because in this month, all the grasses and plants on this land have begun to sprout, and the main continent will be full of vitality. It can be said that starting from this month, this continent has begun to be full of life again. And on this day, Shi Xiong started his second speech broadcast for the whole family this year in the Giant Bear Palace. My people, my compatriots. The hustle and bustle of the capital city was as quiet as a cemetery at this time. More than 100,000 people living in this city have put aside their work at this time, have interrupted each other's conversations or quarrels, all stopped hurriedly or slowly, and stood quietly facing the direction of the Giant Bear Palace, looking at the tall and solemn building in the distance. Listen to the sound from the electric speakers placed in the corners of the tall buildings in the city. There, standing today, our grim bear army soldiers will once again embark on the journey. They will use their guns and artillery to defend our compatriots and tribesmen in the north. The compatriots and tribesmen of those tribes have not yet integrated into it. But they are still our compatriots. Ishikame's voice not only spread throughout Shangjing with electric horns, but also spread to every corner controlled by the Cherokee through radio waves in the form of a Morse code. Of course, because of the transmission distance and manual translation, the original sound of the great chieftain of the Son of God cannot be heard elsewhere, and the time will be delayed, but this does not prevent almost all the people from listening to the broadcast respectfully. In the past few years, you should have understood the fact that although we belonged to different tribes before, in fact we are all true compatriots who are connected by blood and have the same ancestor. No matter if you lived in the Southwest before Navajos, Comanche, Choctaws and Creeks living in the Southeast, or Arapajos, Kiowas, Sioux and Shawans living in the West or Northwest, We are actually all true compatriots. Compared to those Vasicus with yellow hair, blue eyes, and white skin, we are our compatriots who have the same black hair, black pupils, and yellow skin. Moreover, not only you, but also those living in the north, the people of the tribe, are also our compatriots. While promoting education, Stone Bear is also vigorously promoting the history of Indians. In later generations, there has been a clear conclusion about the true origin of the Indians. The Stone Bear only worked as a porter, and carried this conclusion to the present, here. This is very necessary, because only in this way can the Indians of different tribes know their origins and who their ancestors are. More importantly, let them understand that the Cherokees have a common ancestor just like them. The Cherokee are not enemies, but compatriots of the same blood. In the past, the compatriots who were originally brothers and sisters separated because of this and other reasons, and formed different tribes of this kind, like a big family divided. But now, the great chief of the Son of God has brought this big family together again, and once again made the people of all ethnic groups who had been separated for thousands of years into a close family, and renewed this big family some vitality. But even so, all the people of the tribe already know that in the remote and cold north, in the territory controlled by those Wasicus, there are still many compatriots floating outside this big family. And now, the invincible Grim Bear Army will embark on an expedition to retake these drifting compatriots and reintegrate them into this big family. This is undoubtedly a heaven for all the tribesmen. Big thing. Since those Vasicus came to the land where we live 200 years ago, they have been plotting the land where we live. In this process, many people who originally lived in the land of eternal sunshine, Eastern, the compatriots, were all harmed by the Vasicus. Some tribes had to move westward in front of the Vasicu muskets and horses, and some tribes were exterminated by the Vasicus. For example, the Pickets. For example, the Mohicans. We can no longer allow this to happen. We can no longer let our compatriots be killed by those Vasicu guns. We are going to rescue our compatriots. We are going to rescue our brothers and sisters. The sonorous and powerful voice of Shi Xiong echoed throughout the capital, and everyone silently and tightly clenched their fists. Although our Grim Bear Army is extremely powerful, those Vasicus are not vegetarians. They are very cruel. In order to avoid excessive casualties, I did not rescue our compatriots a few years ago because I have to wait for the right opportunity. We have to wait for a one-time opportunity to rescue all our compatriots. Now, this opportunity is here. Just yesterday, some of our tribesmen who were willing to risk their lives deep into the area controlled by Wasiku sent a message back through our radio. It was in the northern suburbs of Boston, one of Wasiku's nests. Yesterday morning, there was a war like a dog biting a dog. Those Vasicus fought with each other, and they fought fiercely. The most important thing is that this kind of battle will soon spread, and it will eventually become a whole Wasi, a huge war in the Chu colony. Stone Bear planted a lot of spies in the 13th colonies in the east, especially the colonies in the northeast, including Shawnees and Cherokees. The task of these people is to find out about the colonists. In particular, Stone Bear told the spies as the sons of gods and great prophets that these Vasicus will have a fierce battle in the northern suburbs of Boston. Once this battle occurs, these spies must use the radio station at the fastest speed. Deliver the news back. www.wuxiaspot.com. Just yesterday at noon, Shi Xiong received the long-awaited news. In Lexington Village in the northern suburbs of Boston, 800 Red Shrimp soldiers were ambushed by a group of local militiamen. The originally arrogant and invincible Red Shrimp soldier was killed. Nearly 250 people. Ishikawa knew that this was the famous Battle of Lexington and the prelude to the War of Independence. My compatriots, we are now going to take advantage of the time when Vasiku is overwhelmed by ourselves, and do our best to rescue our compatriots who are still floating outside. And when our Blizzard Army rescues our compatriots, the soldiers will also decide whether to expel all the Vasicus from this land based on the forms of those Vasicus. Stone Bear's voice paused for a while, and then broke out again. Now I announce that the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and mixed 5th and 6th divisions of the Grim Bear Army will set off. The remaining forces of the Grim Bear Army maintain the safety of the tribe. During the northern expedition of the Grim Bear Army, anyone who dared to commit rebellion will be sentenced to death for treason. The Grim Bear Army has the power to kill anyone who dares to commit rebellion, and die. Your chief, the great prophet, the Son of God, and the Great Bear will lead the guards to the north. I will fight with our soldiers in me, and bring back our compatriots together. My people, use your cheers to cheer for our soldiers. They need your encouragement and support, and they need your cheers. The upper capital city, where the needle was originally dropped, suddenly broke out with a loud noise. Chapter 525, Elena. How many Elenas are there? In the huge mobile headquarters, Shi Xiong asked the lynx. This mobile headquarters is actually a tent that can be quickly opened and closed. When marching, the tent is put away and put on an enlarged bullock cart. When needed, more than a dozen guards can put up the tent in just over 10 minutes. Bobcat still acts as the leader of the scouts. Even if he is more than 40 years old and his skills are not so agile, but his experience and prestige are unparalleled in the scouts. Now almost all the commanders of the entire scouts are. He brought it out. In fact, the lynx had already retreated from the position of the leader of the scout troops, but Shi Xiong knew that the northern expedition could be the last large-scale battle of the Cherokee expansion, so he personally invited the lynx out. Once again served as the commander of the scout troops. Command over 1,000 scouts below. There are a lot of people. About 10,000 people, but behind these 10,000 people, there are about 10,000 troops supported by other tribes. There are figures of Iroquois, and they have muskets. The bobcats still answered so calmly. Are the Iroquois finally unable to restrain themselves? Are they willing to pull out their musketeers too? Shi Xiong muttered to himself without worry. Although the British, French, and Spaniards have a tacit understanding of not trading guns and artillery weapons to North American Indians, they cannot stand up to more than these three countries that came to North America in the early days. The Dutch arrived in the New World in North America even earlier than the British, so the Iroquois received a large number of muskets from the Dutch a long time ago. The Erie, who was a side branch of the Iroquois like the Cherokee, was also very fierce before. It's a pity that the poisonous arrows of the Erie could not withstand the muskets of the Iroquois, and they were eventually swallowed by the Iroquois. In the first half of the 17th century, even the most old-fashioned matchlock guns could not be dealt with by ordinary bows and arrows. The Cherokee moved south early, so I have not seen the power of the arquebus in the hands of the Iroquois, but the fame of the Iroquois arquebus is great. Starting from Shangjin, along the Mississippi River all the way north, you will enter the territory of the Illini within a short walk. Illini people are Illinois, a strong tribe living in later Central America and the Great Plains, and they speak the Algonquin language. The Illini people usually rely on hunting elk, turkey, buffalo, deer, bobcat and other animals for food, and they also grow corn and pumpkins. Of course, they also do fur business with the French, and they are one of the important business objects of the French. The entire Illini is made up of more than 10 major groups, including Michigan, Moinwina, Tamaroa, Jinkoya, Miloa, Cahokia, Kaskasians, Peorians, Espaminkias, etc. In its heyday, the territory of the Illinois extends from Chicago in the north to Arkansas in the south, and they control a large area of land. However, in the original historical time and space, under the successive attacks of the alien European colonists and the American army, their organization was gradually disintegrated and defeated. Most of them ceased to exist, and finally moved to Oklahoma in the mid-19th century. Horse. The current Illinois are in their heyday. In fact, if it weren't for the violent bears' continuous extermination of the Chickasaws, the conquering of the Osages and Kiowas, and the relocation of Shangjin to the vicinity of the confluence of the Mi River and the Russian River, the Illinites would have felt the kilo. The strength of the base people has shrunk their power in the south back, and even the current Upper Kyoto is within their sphere of influence. However, the Illini and the Osakis didn't deal with them originally. The two powerful tribes overlapped in their spheres of influence, so small and medium-scale conflicts between them often broke out. Although the population of the Ilani is not as good as that of the Osiskis, they are more sturdier, so the two sides are evenly matched, and the sphere of influence controlled by each other is also intertwined. But the problem is that the Osakis, who can be equal to the Ilinas, are easily taken care of by the Grizzlies. How can the Ilinas not feel scared? Especially in recent years, with the continuous growth of Beijing, even the powerful French have been beaten up by the Cherokee. The French's channel on the Mississippi River has even been completely cut off, and the Ilaniites are even more afraid. The Ilinas took the initiative to shrink and formed a team of tens of thousands of people in their core area, trying to resist the Cherokee's northward movement. The core area of the Ilian people is approximately located in the central area of Illinois in the later American state, which is the area between Springfield and Peoria. There is a hilly area between the Ilana and Xionging. This hilly area was later known as the Shawnee National Forest in the United States, and it was also the only natural barrier between the Ilian and Xionging. Now, the main force of the Ilana is in this hilly area trying to stop the northern expedition of the Grim Bear Army, because after passing this hill and going north, it is the Great Plain of Yumapinchuan, and there is no natural danger to act as a line of defense. But the problem is that the only way to go from Beijing to the northern expedition is by land. The wide Mississippi River is the best route for troop transport. In fact, the 4 divisions of the Grim Bear Army, except for the 1st Division and the 5,000 guards who followed the Stone Bear as the Chinese army, followed the Stone Bear by land. The other 4 divisions all advanced by water. The 2nd Division and the mixed 5th Division went northward along the Mississippi River in batches www.wuxiaspa.com. While the 3rd and mixed 6th Division also went northward by boat along the Ohio River. In this way, together with the 1st Division and the guards who walked by land in the middle, the Grim Bear Army has formed a state of encirclement to the Ilani. According to the previously formulated military plan, the Chinese army was slower because it traveled by land. However, after the Chinese army arrived in this hilly area, the West Route Army and East Route Army on the left and right sides of the waterway could also encircle and complete this area, surrounded by hilly areas. There are not enough ships for the Grim Bear Army, and it is impossible to transport all the grizzly bear soldiers at one time. They can only be transported in batches. So although the waterway is fast, it takes a lot of time. Bighorn sheep, where have our West Route Army and East Route Army arrived? The Stone Bear asked the Gyro Bear Army to grow bighorn sheep. According to the scheduled march plan, half of our West Route Army should have arrived at the predetermined position. The East Route Army is a little farther away, and now it is estimated that 40% have reached the predetermined position. If both the West Route Army and the East Route Army arrive at the predetermined position, if it does, it will take about 7 days. The Bighorn Sheep replied very positively. He is an army commander, so he naturally has to clearly control the details of his subordinates. Shi Xiong nodded slightly, and then said, "If we don't wait for the West Route Army and the East Route Army, can we just overwhelm the Ilus?" The Bighorn Sheep smiled. "Of course it's okay. These Ilinas look down on us too much. They dare to divide their troops. There are more than 10,000 people, even if there are Iroquois musketeers. Our 1st Division only needs to be dispatched. The Division Artillery Corps will be able to destroy them directly." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.